Beep. Amidst the shock, before anyone could react, a soft sound rang out. In the black stone chamber where the dozen or so individuals who had persevered until the fourth level were located, the spirit lamps suddenly flashed, and they simultaneously entered the fifth level. Hiss. Gasps of cold air were heard in succession, and everyone present was shaken. The fifth level represented the true energy of the sect realm. The fact that these dozen or so people could enter the fifth level indicated one thing: their control over profound level true energy had reached an extremely terrifying level. Although not perfect, it was at least 80% there. And these dozen or so people were all top geniuses from the Great Wei dynasty and various major forces. Not one of them was weaker than a peak profound level intermediate stage martial artist. Except for Qin Chen. Qin Chen was like a monster, becoming the only heaven-level martial artist among these dozen or so people, and he even entered the fifth level in perfect condition. Beep beep beep. As soon as they entered the fifth level, the spirit lamps outside the black stone chamber where these dozen or so people were located began to flash wildly. Immediately afterward, geniuses were eliminated one after another. They had already been struggling in the fourth level, barely managing to enter the fifth level. Now, upon entering the fifth level, the difficulty instantly increased, causing them to make a large number of mistakes and be eliminated in quick succession. The true energy of the sect realm and the true energy of the profound realm are vastly different. Martial sect represents a grandmaster of martial arts, and not just anyone can easily reach it. Many sect-level experts from the Great Wei dynasty sighed in the plaza, eliciting much agreement. However, it is already extremely difficult for them to enter the fifth level of the true essence of martial arts with their profound level cultivation. For them, this is a valuable experience. By taking advantage of this, they will be able to save a lot of effort in the future when they step into the martial sect realm, saving at least several years of hard work. It seems that it won't be long before several sect-level geniuses appear in Audiobook province. At that time, they will definitely create a sensation throughout the entire Great Wei dynasty. I didn't expect that this land of the Five Kingdoms would actually have such an amazing relic. This trip has truly been worthwhile. Immediately, everyone was shocked and began to discuss animatedly. It's been so long, why hasn't the Qin Chen been eliminated yet? At this moment, a depressed voice suddenly rang out. Everyone looked up and saw that only a few martial artists remained in the fifth level on the plaza: Lu Xian sects Hua Tian Du, Cold Scholar Gongzi Leng Wushuang, and Emperor Heart Young Master Dai Tianyi, and Qin Chen. Moreover, these four people were still maintaining a perfect state. What's going on? So much time has passed in the fifth level, how come that Qin Chen still hasn't made a single mistake? That's right, it's normal for Emperor Heart Young Master and the others to maintain perfection. The three of them are the three great prodigies of Audiobook province, and as long as their condition is good, it's not impossible. But the Qin Chen. Everyone was confused and couldn't understand it at all. At this point, their doubts about Qin Chen coming from a place like the Five Kingdoms were no longer the only issue. Rather, it was the fact that a heaven-level expert could maintain perfection in the face of the control of sect-level true energy, which was simply impossible. When a martial artist breaks through from the heaven level to the profound level, the power in their body will transform from true chi to true energy. And from the profound level to the sect level, it is even more necessary to control true energy to the point of perfection. Qin Chen, a heaven-level martial artist who hasn't even reached the profound level and still has true chi in his body, how could he control sect-level true energy so skillfully? This is simply impossible. There must be something wrong. How long can this Qin Chen maintain his perfection? Now, the only thing they were concerned about was when Qin Chen would make a mistake and be eliminated. All the spectators present focused their attention on the black stone chambers of Hua Tian Du, Leng Wushuang, Dai Tianyi, and Qin Chen, wanting to see how long these four could last. As for the other black stone chambers, basically no one was paying attention to them anymore. Time passed by, and the four people in the black stone chambers were still in perfect condition. Perfect, still perfect. Several minutes passed, and almost all the spectators were waiting for Qin Chen to make a mistake, but no matter how they waited, the spirit lamp on Qin Chen's instrument was still lit up, indicating perfection. Immediately, These spectators couldn't help but feel waves of amazement in their hearts again. How is this possible? Even the leaders of the three top forces were frowning as they looked at Qin Chen's black stone chamber, feeling unbelievable. Dai Tianyi and the others were already the prodigies of Xuan province. Even in the entire Great Wei dynasty, they could be considered top geniuses, but they were only able to persevere until now because of their profound level late-stage cultivation. But what about Qin Chen? He was at least a few years younger and his cultivation was only the trashy heaven level late stage, yet he could maintain the same performance as Dai Tianyi and the others. What a joke! Even the most heaven-defying peerless genius of the Great Wei dynasty probably couldn't do this, right? Beep. Just as everyone was feeling depressed and confused, a sound of failure suddenly entered everyone's ears. Ha ha, I knew it. How could the Qin Chen keep maintaining perfection? Immediately, a shout came from the crowd. Ha ha, that kid finally made a mistake. HMPH, that's right. How could a youth from the Five Kingdoms compare to Emperor Heart Young Master and the others? Some spectators breathed a long sigh of relief, as if they had been relieved of a heavy burden, and couldn't wait to discuss it. It seems that the one who made the mistake just now was cold scholar Gongzi Leng Wushuang. A weak voice came from somewhere in the crowd. Leng Wushuang. Impossible. What nonsense are you talking about? Cold scholar Gongzi is a heaven-defying genius of Tianheng Academy. How could he be the one who made the mistake? That's right. That's right. Everyone disdainfully directed contemptuous voices at that person, and then looked up at the plaza, their faces filled with disdain for that person. But when they saw the scene on the plaza, everyone's expressions instantly froze, and they stood there dumbfounded, petrified on the spot. On the plaza, the spirit lamps outside the stone chambers of Dai Tianyi, Hua Tiandu, and Qin Chen were still in perfect condition, while the spirit lamp outside Leng Wushuang's stone chamber began to flash wildly. How is this possible? Everyone felt like they had seen a ghost, feeling unbelievable. Even cold scholar Gongzi Leng Wushuang had made a mistake, yet Qin Chen could still maintain perfection. How is this possible? Just as everyone was shocked, another sound of failure came. Fortunately, that Qin Chen made a mistake right after cold scholar Gongzi. Luck. It must be luck. The crowd breathed a sigh of relief, but found that the originally perfect spirit lamp outside Hua Tiandu's stone chamber began to flash in the next moment, while the spirit lamp outside Qin Chen's stone chamber remained in perfect condition. Before they could react, another sound of failure rang out, and the spirit lamp outside Emperor Heart Young Master Dai Tianyi's stone chamber also began to flash. On the plaza, except for Qin Chen's stone chamber, which remained perfect, the spirit lamps outside the stone chambers of the three great prodigies of Xuan province were all flashing wildly. It was so dazzling, blinding everyone's eyes. At that moment, everyone petrified, utterly stunned, as if their systems had crashed. Some even desperately rubbed their eyes, unable to believe the scene before them. The three geniuses of Xuanzu had all made mistakes, but Qin Chen hadn't. What a continental joke. Wasn't this saying that Qin Chen's talent was even higher than that of the young master of Emperor Heart? This was simply impossible, not to mention that Qin Chen came from the Five Nations, while the young master of Emperor Heart and the others came from the top forces of Xuanzu in the Great Wei dynasty. Just the fact that Qin Chen was only a heaven-level expert was already completely inexplicable. Think about it. A heaven-level expert from the Five Nations actually surpassed the three late-stage mysterious-level genius experts of Xuanzu in the Great Wei dynasty in terms of true qi control. No matter how you thought about it, it felt unbelievable. There must be something wrong. Thinking of this, many geniuses of the Great Wei dynasty shuddered, and a possibility surfaced in their minds. Could it be that there's a malfunction in the black stone chamber where Qin Chen is, which is why this is happening? Someone asked suspiciously. As soon as these words came out, everyone's body shook, and they nodded like chickens pecking rice, their pale expressions regaining their radiance. That's right. That must be the reason. Ha ha, I knew it. How could Qin Chen have persisted until now? If there's something wrong with the black stone chamber, then it can be explained. It's him. With his cultivation, no matter what, it's impossible for him to rush to the fifth level, the sovereign level true power, without making a single mistake. He's a heaven level martial artist. He actually made a mistake in the first level, but now he hasn't made a single mistake. This is simply illogical. That's right. Everyone nodded, their faces flushed, as if a heavy stone had been lifted from their hearts, and they all relaxed. It was really scary just now. They thought that Qin Chen's talent was higher than that of the young master of Emperor Heart and the others. Now it seemed that he had just stumbled upon good luck and entered a problematic black stone chamber. If this ancient southern capital ruins were really ruins from before the Dark Ages, they would probably be more than tens of thousands of years old. After such a long period of time, it would be normal for even the most high-tech things to have problems. With so many black stone chambers on the field, it's normal for one of them to have problems over the years. One by one, they were calm and relaxed, chatting with smiles. On the side of the Great Qi Kingdom, Xiao Zhan was puzzled. The black stone chamber has a problem. Seeing the strong men of the Great Wei dynasty so sure, he was also a little suspicious. He was very clear about Qin Chen's talent. If he was said to be the first in the Great Qi Kingdom, there was absolutely no problem. But he himself was not very confident about being able to compete with the geniuses of Xuanzhu in the Great Wei dynasty. He could only suppress his doubts and continue watching. At this time, a series of rumbling sounds rang out one after another on the field. The remaining 96 black stone chambers were constantly being entered, and people were being eliminated, and then people were entering again, making it very lively. But no one paid attention, and everyone's eyes were focused on the black stone chambers of Qin Chen and the other three, wanting to see how far they could go. Hold on. You must hold on. If you can enter the 6th level, even if you are eliminated, it will be of great benefit to your future. Young master, you must hold on. The leading powerhouses of the three major forces of the Great Wei dynasty all looked nervous, clenched their hands tightly, and felt uneasy. Although entering the 5th level, the sovereign level, with a mysterious level cultivation base was already an amazing performance, they hoped even more that Dai Tianyi and the others could enter the 6th level, the venerable level assessment. For geniuses like Dai Tianyi and the others, being able to glimpse the operation of the 6th order venerable level realm of true power in the mysterious level stage was almost irreplaceable for them. It could make their path to becoming strong in the future smoother and almost without any obstacles. As if hearing the prayers of everyone, on the square, with a beep, the spirit lamps outside the black stone chambers where Dai Tianyi and the other three were located all lit up at the same time, passing the 5th level and entering the 6th level. Great. It's really great. We finally entered the 6th level. Venerable level. This is the insight of the 6th order venerable level realm. It's a pity that I can't participate in the assessment, otherwise, if I could feel it, I would be willing to lose 10 years of my life. Young master has made a big profit this time. The leading powerhouses of the three major forces of Xuanzhu were so excited that their bodies trembled and their faces turned red, and they were almost reaching a climax. They couldn't help but be excited. After this assessment, if there were no accidents, Dai Tianyi and the others would have a very high probability of advancing to the venerable level realm within 20 years. What did this represent? In the Great Wei dynasty, the 6th order venerable level was already considered a top powerhouse, and even for large forces like Emperor Heart City, it was a force that could not be ignored. The strong men of the other forces of the Great Wei dynasty who watched were all sighing and jealous. How good would it be if the genius of their forces had entered the 6th level, but unfortunately. While they were excited, the situation on the field was not optimistic. The ear-piercing tweet sound kept ringing. As soon as Dai Tianyi and the others entered the 6th level, the spirit lamps outside the black stone chambers flickered wildly, obviously extremely difficult to control the venerable level true power, and a large number of mistakes occurred in the first instant. And the black stone chamber where Qin Chen was located was still so balanced, still maintaining a perfect state. Needless to say, there must be something wrong with the martial Dao true meaning assessment stone chamber. No matter how talented a heaven-level martial artist is, it is impossible for him not to make a single mistake in the 6th order venerable level true power assessment. Not to mention our Xuanzhu, even the entire Great Wei dynasty, or even the vast continent outside the Great Wei dynasty, it is impossible to have such a genius. Everyone completely relaxed, feeling extremely relaxed, and no longer had any worries. Thinking that they were shocked that the kid from the 5 nations could continue to maintain perfection before, now thinking about it, they all wanted to laugh. It turned out that it was just a malfunction of the assessment chamber. For a time, all the audience present no longer paid attention to Qin Chen, but all stared at the stone chambers where Dai Tianyi and the other 3 were located, wanting to see who would be the first to be eliminated and who would persist to the end. Bang! Without waiting for everyone to wait for long, after a while, there was a rumbling sound, and then the stone chamber where young Master Leng Wushuang, was located suddenly opened. It turned out that young Master Leng was the first to be eliminated. It seems that young Master Leng is still somewhat lacking in terms of true power control compared to the young Master of Emperor Heart and the son of Leaving Immortal Sect. Everyone sighed. After Leng Wushuang came out of the stone chamber, his eyes first fell on the black stone chambers of Dai Tianyi and the others beside him. Seeing that Dai Tianyi and Hua Tiandu had not been eliminated yet, his face suddenly became somewhat unsightly. Damn it! I was the first to be eliminated. With a gloomy face, Leng Wushuang gritted his teeth and said secretly. Suddenly, his eyes caught sight of a black stone chamber next to him. His eyes widened, and his whole person was as if struck by lightning, stunned. It turned out that besides Dai Tianyi and Hua Tiandu's black stone chambers, someone else had actually reached the 6th level in this martial Dao true meaning assessment, and what's more, they were still in perfect condition. How is that possible? Among these geniuses, how could someone's cultivation be even stronger than his, Hua Tiandu's, and Dai Tianyi's? That makes no sense at all. Which genius is it? Frowning, Leng Wushuang pondered. That stone chamber. Suddenly, as if realizing something, Leng Wushuang's eyes widened, his expression even more astonished, as if he were constipated. Wasn't that position the young man from the 5 nations who had previously fought against Hua Tiandu and Dai Tianyi? But that young man was clearly only in his teens, and his cultivation was only at the heaven level, right? Leng Wushuang had paid attention to Qin Chen's previous confrontation with Hua Tiandu and Dai Tianyi, so after carefully recalling it, he remembered that the black stone chamber seemed to be where Qin Chen was. For a moment, his whole person was completely messed up in the wind. What exactly is going on? Just as he was shocked. Bang! At this moment, another booming sound came. The spirit lamps outside the stone chamber flickered wildly, and Hua Tiandu, the Lixian sect's disciple who had been constantly making mistakes, also let out a loud bang. Then, with a face full of annoyance and a hint of excitement, Hua Tiandu also walked out of the black stone chamber. As soon as he came out, he saw Leng Wushuang standing there dumbfounded. Seeing that the other party had been eliminated even earlier than him, a hint of victorious smile appeared on his originally annoyed face. But immediately afterward, after seeing that Dai Tianyi had not yet come out, his expression suddenly became ugly again. Turning his head to look at Dai Tianyi's black stone chamber, as expected, the spirit lamps in Dai Tianyi's black stone chamber were flickering wildly, but he had not yet been eliminated. Damn it! This Dai Tianyi is really lucky, he hasn't been eliminated yet. His face gloomy, Hua Tiandu felt depressed. Immediately, he glanced and happened to see Qin Chen's black stone chamber. He was stunned for a moment, and then his mouth immediately widened, as if he had seen a ghost. Bang! At this moment, a loud bang rang out, and Dai Tianyi's black stone chamber also let out a loud bang. Immediately afterward, Dai Tianyi walked out of the black stone chamber with a face full of annoyance. The first thing he did, like Leng Wushuang and Hua Tiandu, was to look at the location of the other party's black stone chamber. Seeing that Leng Wushuang and Hua Tiandu had already left the stone chamber, and were obviously eliminated, his eyes lit up immediately. You too, it seems you came out earlier than me, ha ha, ha ha ha. Dai Tianyi laughed loudly, his face full of triumph. In Dai Tianyi's view, among all the martial artists, only Hua Tiandu and Leng Wushuang, who were also in the late stage of the profound realm, were his opponents. Now that the other party had been eliminated before him, then he should be the undisputed number 1. Alas, this 6th level is really too difficult. The true energy particles are too powerful and complex, and the collision speed is too fast. If I could have persisted a little longer, maybe I could have entered the 7th level. The 7th level is the martial king realm, where the true energy in the body begins to transform into true essence. If I could understand this process, it would have an immeasurably huge impact on my future. Unfortunately, I didn't seize the opportunity. Dai Tianyi was both excited and regretful. But the corners of his eyes were filled with a triumphant smile. Being able to enter the 6th level and persist until now was already extremely rare. Wanting to enter the 7th level was simply a dream, and he himself knew it was impossible to achieve. However, the fact that he was the last one of the 3 to come out was enough for him to be proud of for a long time in front of Hua Qiandu and Leng Wushuang. Looking at the two triumphantly, Dai Tianyi was just about to accept the excited worship of the crowd and the angry and depressed gazes of the two. However, what responded to him was a silence full of strangeness. All the martial artists present, as well as the experts outside the ancient southern capital, and Leng Wushuang and Hua Qiandu, all stretched their necks, their eyes staring fixedly at his back, as if they had seen a ghost. What is going on? I have already come out of the black stone chamber, what are they looking at? Dai Tianyi felt depressed. These guys, wouldn't they be driven silly by me? Unable to help himself, he also turned his head to look. With this one look, he was immediately dumbfounded, and his expression immediately became the same as Hua Qiandu's and Leng Wushuang's, his eyeballs almost popping out. Only to see not far behind him, a black stone chamber was lit with the spirit lamp representing the 6th level, and it was still in perfect condition, without a single mistake. Dai Tianyi instantly suffered endless blows. Who is in this black stone chamber? Even he failed, how can there still be someone inside taking the test? And they can still maintain perfection on the 6th level. Dai Tianyi's brain stopped working for a moment, and after a while, he woke up. Recalling the location of that black stone chamber in his mind, a clear human face gradually emerged in his mind. Dai Tianyi immediately opened his mouth wide, his eyes widened incomparably, a hint of horror and disbelief appearing in his eyes, and he muttered, "Qin Chen, isn't that black stone chamber the one from the 5 nations? How could it be him?" His mind shook wildly, and he was so depressed that he was about to vomit blood. He, a genius in the late stage of the profound realm, had failed, but that heaven-level brat from the 5 nations was still persisting. This was simply too unbelievable. He would rather believe that a sow could climb a tree than believe everything that was happening in front of him at this moment. It was in this dead silence that, after who knows how long, the black stone chamber where Qin Chen was located suddenly underwent a change. Huff. As soon as this change occurred, Dai Tianyi instantly took a long breath, and a relaxed and relieved expression also appeared on his extremely nervous face. He made a mistake. That guy finally made a mistake. Since he made a mistake, then he is not far from failure. But how could this kid persist until now? Just when everyone was talking and everyone was relieved. With a beep sound, a familiar cry rang out throughout the audience, and Qin Chen's black stone chamber instantly entered the 7th level from the original 6th level. Everyone at the same time widened their eyes, their relieved bodies standing stiffly there, their throats making a creepy creaking sound, completely dumbfounded again. PFFT. Dai Tianyi and the others couldn't bear it any longer and spat out a mouthful of old blood. At this moment, everyone was about to go crazy. Qin Chen entering the 7th level, no matter how you looked at it, seemed like a fantasy. How could this possibly happen? Sure enough, there must be a malfunction in this black stone chamber. Besides this, there is no second possibility. At this moment, outside the ancient southern capital, a noisy discussion came, causing Dai Tianyi and the others to completely wake up, one by one suddenly realizing. Yes, it's a malfunction. It must be a malfunction. Dai Tianyi and the others also quickly recognized this fact. This was definitely a sure thing, otherwise, how could they explain everything that was happening in front of them? Unexplainable. The 7th level. What kind of concept was that? No one present knew. All they knew was that since the martial Dao truth assessment had appeared on the continent, whether it was the Great Wei dynasty or the higher level forces that the Great Wei dynasty could contact, they had never heard of a martial artist at the heaven level realm breaking into the 7th level of the martial Dao truth. Not to mention heaven level martial artists, even profound level martial artists had never been heard of breaking into the 7th level. This was the 7th level, representing the control of true essence at the 7th level martial king realm. Martial artist cultivation, from the 1st to the 3rd level, was true chi. From the 4th to the 6th level, it was true force. Upon breaking through to the 7th level, true force would transform into true essence. This was a completely different realm and concept, crossing an enormous level. When true force transformed into true essence, everything in a martial artist's body would undergo a transformation. The true essence within the body would be almost inexhaustible. Therefore, the 7th level represented the king among martial artists. That was why they were called martial kings. It could be said without exaggeration that before touching this realm, not to mention Qin Chen, a 3rd level heaven level martial artist, even a 6th level martial venerable, even a peak 6th level martial venerable, shouldn't even think about easily breaking into the 7th level and attempting to control true essence. This was a forbidden realm. But now, Qin Chen from the 5 nations had not only broken into the 7th level, but also remained in perfect condition after entering, without the slightest mistake. This was simply impossible. It must be a malfunction. There's no other possibility. Yes. Since the martial Dao truth assessment appeared, no genius on the continent has ever been able to break into the 7th level, the martial king level, at the heaven level. However, why doesn't the remaining will of the ancient southern capital directly judge Qin Chen as a loser? Perhaps that black figure is just a remaining will, monitoring the progress of the assessment, without independent consciousness. Therefore, it hasn't noticed this. When Qin Chen finishes the assessment, it might sense it. When the will of the ancient southern capital directly determines that Qin Chen's assessment result is invalid, I wonder what expressions the 5 nations will have. At this moment, all the experts of the Great Wei dynasty were completely relieved and no longer had any worries. Previously, when entering the 6th level, although they thought it was a malfunction of the black stone chamber, they were still faintly worried deep down. What if Qin Chen really relied on his strength to break into the 6th level? But now, this worry was completely gone. Why did they even need to ask? There was simply no one in this world who could break into the 7th level, the martial king level, at the 3rd level heaven level, without making a mistake. The Great Wei dynasty didn't have one, and neither did the higher level forces on the continent, let alone a remote place like the 5 nations, a land of poor mountains and wretched waters. So it was a malfunction, gave me a big scare. I thought Qin Chen really passed the 6th level. I was really confused. I couldn't figure out how it was possible. Dai Tianyi and the others were also completely relieved. After learning that Qin Chen's black stone chamber had malfunctioned, Dai Tianyi's smug expression resurfaced, and he glanced arrogantly at Hua Qiandu and Leng Wushuang, his eyes full of smugness. It's just persisting for a moment longer. There's no need to be so excited. Those who don't know might think you broke into the 7th level. Who wins and who loses in the following assessments is still unknown. Leng Wushuang and Hua Qiandu snorted coldly. However, the smugness on Dai Tianyi's face didn't diminish at all. He chuckled and said, "No matter what, I'm the one who persisted until the end, aren't I?" Ha ha ha. While Dai Tianyi was exceptionally smug, Qin Chen at this moment was completely immersed in the comprehension and control of true essence. In that vast white space, Qin Chen stood there with his eyes closed. Around his body, countless powerful true essence currents floated. Some of these currents were like fierce tigers, and some were like true dragons, colliding frantically with each other, forming amazing roars, incomparably chaotic. With such fierce and diverse true essence operation, not to mention some profound level martial artists, even 7th level martial kings might not be able to fully control it. Strands of incomparably powerful perception were released by Qin Chen, each perception affecting one or more true essence currents. In addition, Qin Chen's spiritual power was also frantically stirring in this void, like a vortex. Each rotation drove a piece of amazing true essence current, making these currents seem like soldiers commanded by a general, arranging themselves in order. Under the spiritual sense command of Qin Chen's hands, no matter how chaotic the true essence currents in the void were, or how intense the reactions between them were, Qin Chen could control them within extremely small ranges, finding the key positions for each other's fusion, combining and changing with each other, as easily as using his own arms. This feeling, Qin Chen closed his eyes, with a faint smile on his face, his whole person completely integrated into the control of true essence. In his previous life, Qin Chen's cultivation reached the 8th level martial emperor, so he naturally had a thorough understanding of true essence control. His understanding of 7th level true essence was also extremely clear. But at this moment, with the help of the martial Tao truth, Qin Chen's understanding and control of 7th level true essence reached a new peak. That's it. That's this feeling. At this moment. In Qin Chen's feeling, he seemed to have become a part of these true essence, participating in every reaction between them. All the true essence seemed to have become his friends, his brothers, cheerfully walking and playing around him, feeling their emotions. The truth of martial Tao, yes, this is the truth of martial Tao. Qin Chen's whole person was completely immersed in it at this moment. At this moment, he had forgotten that he was taking an assessment, and even forgotten the reactions between true essence, but let these true essence currents combine freely with each other, collide freely with each other, and Qin Chen himself went with the flow, allowing these true essence currents to fuse freely, letting himself become a part of these true essence. He didn't know how long it had passed, but suddenly, all the true essence currents swept away, and Qin Chen woke up from this feeling. Did I enter the 8th level? Not wanting to let this feeling disappear, Qin Chen waited quietly. Soon, a large number of true essence currents reappeared in front of him. These currents were several times more terrifying than those in the 7th level. A terrifying pressure like the destruction of heaven and earth pressed down. The power of the martial emperor, the 8th level represents the power of the 8th level martial emperor. In my previous life, I was an 8th level peak martial emperor, even enough to compete with the 9 heavens martial emperor, but now I feel that my understanding of true essence in the martial emperor realm is still lacking a lot. This martial Tao truth can just allow me to comprehend more thoroughly in the martial emperor realm. With an excited mind, Qin Chen completely immersed himself in it. Rumble. A large amount of martial emperor power surrounded Qin Chen, and he could clearly sense the essence of each martial emperor power. That kind of thorough and transparent feeling made him obsessed and intoxicated. Martial Emperor, the emperor among martial artists. In my previous life, I thought I had understood the martial emperor's true essence extremely thoroughly, and could even fight beyond my level. But looking at it now, I realize that the true power of a martial emperor is profound and mysterious, and not something the previous me could have mastered. Qin Chen sighed, and was also shocked. Participating in this martial Tao truth assessment, Qin Chen realized that he was still lacking too much in his understanding of martial arts. In his previous life, he was the most outstanding genius in the martial domain, almost invincible among his peers. Looking back now, it's so ridiculous, and he took many detours and went astray in many places. This martial Tao truth has given me a more essential understanding of true essence, but truly mastering it is not something that can be done overnight. Knowing it is difficult, and doing it is even more difficult, but after this epiphany, at least I have a clearer and more definite direction on the road ahead. Rumble. Under Qin Chen's control, a large amount of martial emperor power crazily fused and collided, each containing amazing power, but without the slightest error, which was amazing. However, at the level of martial emperor, Qin Chen had already felt some pressure, and the control over true essence was not as free as before. He knew that was because he hadn't comprehended the essence of true essence in the martial emperor realm. The reason he could control it now was only because he had rich experience in his previous life, and he forcibly controlled it with his powerful experience. At this moment, he couldn't comprehend too much, and couldn't digest and integrate all the content. He could only silently memorize it in his heart, and wait until after he went out to comprehend it carefully. If I could have comprehended these things in my previous life, I probably wouldn't have been harmed by those two bitches, Fan Xiaoyu and Shangguan Xie. When the last trace of true essence was integrated by Qin Chen, the true essence in front of him completely disappeared, and the entire space returned to calm again. The 8th level has also been passed. Then the next level is the 9 heavens martial emperor realm. At this moment, the blood in Qin Chen's body couldn't help but boil and burn. 9 heavens martial emperor. What a supreme title, representing the pinnacle of the Tianwu Continent world. In his previous life, due to limited talent, Qin Chen tried his best, but could only cultivate to the peak of the 8th level martial emperor, and was never able to break through to the 9 heavens martial emperor realm. And in this life, he can feel all this in advance. How can he not be excited? How can he not be excited? Buzz. The scene in front of him changed, and a series of amazing true essence auras suddenly appeared in front of Qin Chen. Any one of these true essence auras was more than 10 times stronger than the previous 8th level. At the same time, Qin Chen's perception was also elevated to the 9 heavens martial emperor realm. That kind of powerful control made Qin Chen excited and shocked. Is this the 9 heavens martial emperor realm? Trembling with excitement, Qin Chen was like a traveler who had been exposed to the scorching sun in summer and was extremely thirsty, suddenly seeing a clear source of water. That kind of excitement was beyond words. 9 heavens martial emperor is the pinnacle pursued by any martial artist in Tianwu Continent, and the place where dreams lie. Boom. In this feeling, Qin Chen quickly urged the perception and mental power in his body to control a large amount of terrifying true essence aura. But because he was too excited, in just an instant, Qin Chen made a mistake, and the true essence aura in front of him produced a violent chaos. Calm down. I finally have this opportunity to fulfill the long-cherished wish that I failed to achieve in my previous life. How can I be eliminated before I have a better understanding of the 9 heavens martial emperor's true essence? In his previous life, Qin Chen had fought with no small number of 9 heavens martial emperors, and as a 9th grade emperor-level alchemist, Qin Chen also had an extremely thorough understanding of the bodies and true essence of 9 heavens martial emperors. But this kind of understanding was only superficial. It can be said to be a doctor's understanding of a patient's body. But now, in this martial Tao truth, Qin Chen can personally sense every single 9 heavens martial emperor true essence. This feeling is like turning himself into a part of the human tissue. This kind of understanding can be said to reach the essence and point directly to the source. In the midst of desperately controlling, Qin Chen was completely immersed in the comprehension of true essence. Outside the square, when everyone saw that Qin Chen had actually entered the 9th level of the martial Tao truth, they were already numb. At this moment, no one believed that Qin Chen had reached the 9th level by his own strength. Apart from the black stone room malfunctioning, there could be no other explanation. Beep. Suddenly, the spiritual lamp outside the black stone room where Qin Chen was located flashed wildly. Everyone was stunned. Did this kid actually make a mistake? Could it be that the black stone room wasn't malfunctioning? As soon as this thought came out, it was quickly ruled out. What a joke. No malfunction. Could it be that this kid broke through to the 9th level himself? Thinking about it, it was still because of the black stone room itself. A mistake in the 1st level and a mistake in the 9th level. Everyone felt strange, and the way the black stone room malfunctioned was really magical. As time passed, soon, nearly 600 people in the arena had completed the first round of assessment. Only nearly 400 people passed the first round of assessment, and the elimination rate was almost over 40%. Looking around the entire square, only Qin Chen was left in the black stone room. Everyone was going crazy. Qin Chen went in first, and he hadn't come out even after everyone else had finished the assessment, and he even made others wait for him. This was simply. Fortunately, he had already reached the 9th level, so it should be soon. Just as he was thinking about it, bang! The black stone room where Qin Chen was located finally made a loud noise, and the door that had been closed since the beginning of the assessment suddenly opened. Immediately afterwards, he saw a figure walking out of it, swaying. At this time, Qin Chen's eyes were dull, and he looked extremely embarrassed. After coming out, he didn't say a word, and directly sat cross-legged and closed his eyes to cultivate. In the previous martial Tao truth assessment, he had comprehended too many things, and it was difficult to digest them all at once. Therefore, after coming out, he immediately fell into comprehension, and the true energy in his body surged wildly. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A large amount of true energy condensed in his body, becoming solid time and time again, and even faintly impacting towards the 4th level Xuan grade. Originally, everyone was waiting for Qin Chen alone, but now that they saw Qin Chen directly cultivating after coming out, everyone was so depressed that they were about to vomit blood. They sneered in their hearts. Pretend, keep pretending. When the will of Gu Nandu determines that you have failed the assessment later, let's see if you can still be so calm. Some people couldn't help but shout, why hasn't Qin Chen been judged to have lost yet? Yes. The black stone room where this guy is located obviously has a malfunction, so he can't be considered to have passed the assessment, right? The crowd immediately became restless, causing a commotion. The black figure stood silently in the sky, expressionless, offering no indication. Only after an incense stick's worth of time had passed, and Qin Chen had finished cultivating and opened his eyes, did a rumbling voice echo across the entire ancient southern capital. The first round of Martial Dao True Intent Assessment is complete. A total of 398 participants have passed the first round. Now, immediately proceed to the second round of assessment. The appearance of the black figure caused an uproar, with everyone almost disbelieving their ears. Qin Chen's black stone chamber clearly malfunctioned. He's still considered to have passed the assessment. His luck is too good, isn't it? This is completely unfair. The crowd erupted in commotion, with many people's faces flushed red, especially those geniuses who had been eliminated. Why were they eliminated, while Qin Chen, who entered a malfunctioning black stone chamber, was able to advance to the next round? What fairness is there in such an assessment? The black figure coldly glanced at the indignant geniuses on the plaza below, its icy gaze causing many to feel a chill in their hearts, and they hurriedly shut their mouths. They couldn't forget the scene of someone violating the will of the ancient southern capital and being blasted into dust. However, outside the ancient southern capital, those eliminated geniuses were still unconvinced. In particular, several geniuses from the Great Wei dynasty, who had failed to pass the first round, were naturally extremely dissatisfied, cursing repeatedly, even uttering all sorts of vile words. Poof! Suddenly, the ancient southern capital city trembled violently, and an invisible ray of light shot out, instantly blasting those few people into dust. Silence. A deathly silence. The entire scene was completely silent, everyone staring blankly at this scene, as quiet as cicadas in winter. The top experts from the three major forces of the Great Wei dynasty also trembled, their eyes filled with horror. The speed of that light was so fast that they didn't even have time to react. Even if it were them, they would probably be powerless and could only watch themselves be blasted to death. For a time, everyone was filled with awe, no longer daring to utter a single word. The towering black figure in the sky didn't even glance at the crowd, only coldly sweeping its gaze down. The second round of assessment you will face next is the formation assessment. The black figure raised a hand. Buzz. An invisible force descended, and the entire plaza suddenly lit up with a dazzling light. Strange texture arose beneath everyone's feet, enveloping all 398 people who had passed the first round. What complex formation patterns! This is definitely a formation pattern that surpasses the 9th rank. Staring at the formation patterns below, Qin Chen's pupils suddenly constricted. The entire formation was naturally formed by the Great Tao. With his vision, he couldn't even see through it, which showed that the level of this formation had exceeded the limit of what he could understand. In this formation, you will face tremendous pressure. This pressure will gradually increase with the passage of time. Once you can't hold on, your mind will be damaged, and you will vomit blood on the spot. As long as you can persist for more than an hour, you will be considered to have passed the second round of assessment and can enter the third round of preliminaries. The assessment will begin in 5 minutes. Please be prepared. Now, does anyone have any questions? The black figure looked down. Everyone looked at Qin Chen. In the first round, Qin Chen didn't even know the true meaning of the martial Dao and asked questions, causing everyone to laugh. Presumably, he would definitely ask questions in this round as well. But to everyone's surprise, after listening to the assessment content, Qin Chen actually sat down cross-legged, not looking like he had any questions at all. I have a question. Seeing that Qin Chen didn't speak, a genius from the 5 nations suddenly shouted, attracting everyone's attention. This person was only 18 or 19 years old, one of the youngest among everyone, and said with a slightly nervous expression, as far as I know, this ancient southern capital ruins test a martial artist's talent, not direct cultivation. However, the second round of assessment tests the length of time each person can persist under the pressure of this formation. You must know that we are all different ages. Some people are younger and have lower cultivation, so the time they can persist will naturally be shorter. But this does not mean that this person's martial arts talent is really worse than others. In this case, is it somewhat unfair? Now, the many geniuses on the plaza are of different ages. The youngest, like Qin Chen, is less than 16 years old, while the oldest is 24 years old. There is already a difference of nearly 6 years between the two, and there is naturally a big difference in cultivation and strength. Therefore, under the same formation, younger people will definitely be at a great disadvantage. Not only this young man, but other geniuses around the age of 20 also had the same idea. Through the previous assessment of the true meaning of martial Tao, they were very clear that there was an extremely amazing inheritance in this ancient southern capital ruins. And this time, nearly 200 geniuses from the Great Wei dynasty alone came to participate in the assessment. Such a huge competitive pressure put a great deal of pressure on everyone. Even if it meant offending the geniuses of the Great Wei dynasty, they had to do so. Coldly looking at the crowd below, the black figure said indifferently, "There is no need for you to worry about this. In this formation, the pressure you each feel is actually different. The younger you are, the lower the pressure, but the overall difficulty is the same." Hearing the black figure say this, the many younger geniuses breathed a sigh of relief. The assessment begins. Several minutes later, the black figure's cold voice rang out again. Buzz. The flowing light formation suddenly began to operate, and an astonishing pressure was heavily suppressed on everyone. Thump. Several geniuses, who considered themselves to be extraordinary in strength, still stood arrogantly in the formation at the beginning. As a result, as soon as the formation was activated, they were ruthlessly pressed to the ground. Each of them was so frightened that they hurriedly sat down cross-legged, no longer daring to pretend in the slightest. Rumble. Invisible pressure came in layers, like waves of a raging sea, constantly sweeping, as if there was no end in sight. The faces of the vast majority of people were pale, and their bodies trembled faintly. Everyone couldn't help but feel terrified. The pressure of the formation was already so great at the beginning. How difficult would it be to persist for another hour? Originally, many people thought that this level would be very easy, but at this moment, no one dared to have the slightest thought of ease. Each of them held their breath and concentrated, running all their cultivation to resist fiercely. Among the crowd, only Qin Chen, at this moment, revealed a strong look of horror in his eyes. There is actually such a formation in this world that not only oppresses true energy and the physical body, but also has a certain oppressive force on mental power and the soul. This great formation constantly oppresses the cultivation in his body and also has a trace of oppression on other aspects. Moreover, this kind of oppression is not like a mountain, directly suppressing down, but like flowing water, surging in layers. It actually seems like some kind of special cultivation method. With a thought, Qin Chen immediately restrained his spiritual power and true energy, abandoning his resistance to allow the formation's impact to become even more intense. Humph. With a muffled groan, Qin Chen's body shook, his face turned pale, and he swayed unsteadily. What powerful pressure, but as I expected, this pressure isn't sharp, but rather very gentle. In other words, as long as I grasp the degree, it won't cause any damage to the body at all. On the contrary, it's a kind of tempering for the flesh, spirit, and soul. His eyes shining, Qin Chen's face flushed with excitement. One should know that for martial artists, cultivation isn't always about avoiding all danger to be considered a true method of cultivation. Instead, it should be like a spring, with both tension and relaxation, to make the body stronger and more resilient. For example, the blood-spirit pull baptism and the undying sacred body cultivation involved continuous baptism and suppression of the physical body to achieve transformation. However, this method has a significant drawback. If the pressure a martial artist endures is too strong, not only will they fail to achieve the desired effect, but it will also lead to severe damage to the body, even crippling them. The blood-spirit pool baptism was feasible because the blood-spirit pool liquid itself had the effect of enhancing the body's strength. The undying sacred body was feasible because the undying sacred body technique could transform the physical body, making it stronger under pressure. At other times, relying on forceful external force to temper the body could easily lead to problems. However, the pressure generated by the formation in front of him, although extremely terrifying, was extremely gentle in nature. With proper control, it could provide excellent tempering for the body, spiritual power, and soul. Excellent. My undying sacred body has been hovering at the second level. It's been very difficult to enter the third level. Now, under the pressure of this formation, it's enough to allow my undying sacred body to undergo some transformation on its original foundation. With an excited mind, Qin Chen completely released his mind, no longer using any true energy to resist. An immeasurable aura immediately suppressed him, like a vast ocean, pressing down on Qin Chen fiercely. Ugh! With a muffled groan, Qin Chen's body shook violently, teetering on the verge of collapse. The blood and energy within his body surged, and he almost vomited blood on the spot. The pressure was simply too terrifying. Other martial artists were mobilizing all their true energy to resist with all their might, but Qin Chen was doing the opposite, restraining his true energy and purely using his physical body to resist. This was not even the same concept. If Qin Chen hadn't cultivated the undying sacred body and broken through to the second level, with his pure physical strength alone approaching the martial sect level, even if it were another Xuan level martial artist, they would probably have been eliminated instantly. This scene stunned everyone else present, leaving them all speechless. No way. The second round of assessment had just begun, and Qin Chen couldn't hold on anymore. Looking around, throughout the square, although many geniuses had pale faces from the start, they could at least still persevere. But how long had it been for Qin Chen? He was already swaying, his face pale and flushed. Wasn't this too weak? I said it before, this guy only passed the first round by sheer luck. Someone sneered. It's only been a few minutes, and he can't hold on anymore. Someone shook their head. Actually, this kid might have already been eliminated in the first round, but due to a glitch, he managed to persist until the second round. Just watch, it won't be long before he's the first to be eliminated. Continuous taunts echoed outside the Gunnan capital. Impossible. With Qin Chen's talent, how could he not be able to hold on so quickly? There must be some reason. From the Great Qi Kingdom, Xiao Zhan stared at Qin Chen with a glint in his eyes, not believing that Qin Chen would be unable to hold on so quickly. What is that kid up to? In the crowd, the cloaked man also stared at Qin Chen with a cold expression, a sense of doubt rising in his heart. If asked who in the audience knew Qin Chen's cultivation the best, it would definitely be him. Based on the cultivation Qin Chen had displayed in Martial City, even if the cloaked man was beaten to death, he wouldn't believe that Qin Chen would be eliminated so quickly. That kid is very cunning and treacherous. Maybe he has some conspiracy. With a cold snort, the cloaked man stared intently at Qin Chen. No matter what, he had to retrieve the Azure Lotus demonic fire and would never allow it to fall into the hands of others. Persist. Continue to persist. In the Great Formation, Qin Chen persevered bitterly, allowing the terrifying pressure to bear down on him, yet he remained oblivious. Under the operation of the undying sacred body, his physical body was slowly transforming. Not only his physical body, but also Qin Chen's spiritual power and soul power were constantly tempered under this pressure, becoming more condensed and solid. As time passed, the pressure emanating from the formation became stronger and stronger. PFFT. Qin Chen shuddered violently, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Everyone was dumbfounded. How long had it been? Less than half an incense stick. And he was already vomiting blood. An uproar erupted instantly. Qin Chen actually vomited blood. Hee. Is he about to be eliminated soon? I bet this guy will definitely be the first to be eliminated. Sneers rose and fell. The many powerful experts from the various Great Wei dynasties present all had extraordinary insight and could naturally see that Qin Chen's vomiting of blood was not a pretense, but rather he was truly unable to withstand the pressure and had suffered injuries. In the Great Formation, Hua Tiandu and the others glanced at Qin Chen with disdain. It was this guy who had actually surpassed them in the first round of assessment, and he had even shocked them. Thinking about it now, it was truly laughable. This won't do. The pressure of this great formation is increasing too quickly. In order to eliminate contestants, it will definitely reach an extremely alarming level within an hour. And the speed at which my physical body's strength is increasing can't keep up with the speed at which the formation's pressure is increasing. I must mobilize some true energy. Within his sea of qi, a trace of subtle true energy permeated out. With the replenishment of this trace of true energy, Qin Chen's physical defense strength greatly increased, and the surging blood and energy within his body immediately calmed down, and he continued to cultivate. At this time, the people outside the Gunan capital were all staring intently at Qin Chen, waiting for Qin Chen to be eliminated and see him make a fool of himself. Time passed by, minute by minute. To the crowd's dismay, Qin Chen, who had previously vomited blood, had actually calmed down and was still persevering. What's going on with this kid? He was obviously unable to hold on just now. How come he's fine again all of a sudden? The crowd was speechless and almost went crazy. Just as they were thinking this, PFFT, a contestant not far away swayed, his face turned pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The next moment, buzz. This person completely disappeared from the square, having been thrown out of the Gunan capital, becoming the first eliminated contestant. And after that person, buzz buzz buzz, more than a dozen people vomited blood one after another, and were subsequently eliminated. The crowd was dumbfounded. Qin Chen was not the first eliminated contestant. Just as they were feeling depressed, PFFT, Qin Chen's body swayed, and he spat out another mouthful of blood. Ha ha. Now that Qin Chen has vomited blood, he should be eliminated this time, right? Smiles bloomed on the faces of the crowd, and they became excited. But what frustrated them was that after Qin Chen spat out blood, he still didn't react at all. He remained in the great array and continued to participate in the assessment. Whoosh! The entire scene exploded. In an instant, the noise was like a wave of air, soaring into the sky, almost dispersing the clouds above. Why? What exactly is the will of this ancient southern capital doing? Other martial artists would be immediately thrown out of the ancient southern capital by the will of the ancient southern capital as soon as they spat out blood, losing their qualification for the assessment. But this Qin Chen was different. He spat out blood twice in a row, but he could still stay in the great array and continue to accept the assessment. What the hell was going on? Is this Qin Chen your nephew, or your grandpa? Why are you taking care of him so much? Everyone couldn't understand it. During the first level, the black stone room where Qin Chen was clearly had a malfunction, but the will of the ancient southern capital turned a blind eye. Okay, everyone accepted it. After all, no one knew what happened in the black stone room. If the will of the ancient southern capital said there was no problem, then there was no problem. But this second level was an assessment conducted in full view of everyone. Everyone saw it so clearly that Qin Chen had already spat out blood twice, but he was never eliminated. Everyone was drunk. This Qin Chen is too lucky. I really don't know what's wrong with the will of this ancient southern capital. It just won't eliminate him. HMPH. If he's not eliminated, then he's not eliminated. According to the rules, the pressure of the entire great array will become greater and greater. That Qin Chen has obviously reached his limit, but he doesn't leave. In the end, he will only hurt himself. Just wait and see how Qin Chen dies. The crowd sneered, all watching Qin Chen with ease. Everyone had felt the terror of the will of the ancient southern capital before, so naturally they didn't dare to have too much criticism, but in their hearts, they were all sneering. This second level was different from the first level. Once one couldn't hold on and insisted on staying, the constantly increasing pressure would continuously destroy the martial artist's body until the entire person collapsed, completely losing their vitality and becoming a corpse. Watch. In less than a quarter of an hour, that Qin Chen will definitely be carried out. Someone asserted this, confidently. Others also had the same idea, all sneering as they watched Qin Chen. 1 minute, 2 minutes, ... As time passed, under the rapidly increasing pressure, martial artists were constantly suppressed and quickly couldn't hold on, and they were eliminated one after another. In just over half an hour, the original team of nearly 400 people was reduced to 300 people, with 100 people being directly eliminated. But what frustrated everyone was that Qin Chen, who had spat out blood first, was still persevering. Moreover, he spat out blood twice more in the middle. Is this guy a cockroach? How long has it been? He hasn't been eliminated yet. Who said just now that Qin Chen would definitely be carried out within a quarter of an hour? It's been 2/4 of an hour, right? The crowd was going crazy. It was simply too unfair. From the beginning of the second round of assessment until now, Qin Chen had been behaving as if he would be eliminated soon, but the result was a heavy slap in their faces. This guy was like an unkillable cockroach. He clearly looked like he would be eliminated in the next second, but he just couldn't be teleported out. As for the strong man who had confidently said that Qin Chen would be eliminated in a quarter of an hour, he was even more deeply despised. I guarantee that soon, this guy will be eliminated soon. You believe me? The strong man, with a flushed face, faced the gazes of everyone and said confidently. But the crowd was too lazy to pay attention to him. Some people even couldn't help but have a thought in their minds. Could it be that in this second level, this guy can pass by luck again? Amidst everyone's guesses and torment, 1 hour finally passed. On the plaza, the original nearly 400 people became nearly 250 people, with a full 150 people being eliminated in this round. And Qin Chen, whom everyone wanted to eliminate, was pale and still swaying, but he still persisted firmly. The corner of his mouth still had blood hanging, and even that blood hadn't dried yet. He had spat out blood no less than 4 or 5 times in the middle. But like that stubborn stone, no matter how the wind and rain beat, he never changed in the slightest. Bang bang bang. After an hour, the power of the great array suddenly increased sharply, and contestants were blasted out of the formation one after another. But after these people couldn't hold on, they were not excluded from the ancient southern capital, but landed on the plaza outside the formation. Obviously, they had passed this round of assessment. How is it possible that I, a genius of the Dewey dynasty, would lose to people from the 5 nations? One of the 23 or 4-year-old geniuses of the Dewey dynasty had a gloomy face, looking coldly at the martial artists on the plaza who had not yet been eliminated, his face unsightly. At this time, there were still nearly 200 people on the plaza. Among them, geniuses from the Dewey dynasty accounted for more than 90%, while the remaining geniuses from the 5 nations were few, only about 20 people. Among them, Yu Wenfeng of the Da Liang kingdom and Yu Changxiu of the Lingtian sect were naturally among them. In addition, the lineup of the Da Qi kingdom was also very amazing. Princess Sixyun, Zhao Lingshan, Wang Qiming, and Qin Chen, a total of 4 people, had not been eliminated. And the 4th Prince Zhao Wei and Xiao Jing, who had been blasted out before, had also exceeded an hour and were able to enter the 3rd round of assessment. Equivalent to 6 people, persevering until now, becoming a beautiful scenery. But this was not the most shocking thing. The most terrifying thing was the mysterious Ghost Immortal sect of the 5 nations. The main force of the Ghost Immortal sect had obviously been destroyed by the Da Qi kingdom long ago, but this time, all 8 geniuses they brought had not been eliminated so far, becoming the biggest winner among the 5 nations. Where did these geniuses of the Ghost Immortal sect come from? The total number of disciples from the 5 nations who have passed this second round of assessment should be around 60, but only 20 or so have persevered until now. Almost every force has had many geniuses eliminated, but these 8 disciples of the Ghost Immortal sect have not been eliminated at all. I'm afraid that even some forces of the Dewey dynasty have had people eliminated, right? The crowd frowned, revealing deep doubts. From the previous battle on the high platform, everyone had already seen that this group of strong men from the Ghost Immortal sect had unknown origins and amazing strength. And now, it was even more shocking. Next, geniuses were unable to persevere one after another and were blasted away in succession. Among them, the geniuses of the Dewey dynasty also lost the previous heroic spirit, each one looking disheveled. After an hour and a half, only about 100 people remained. After 2 hours, only 50 people remained. Finally, some of the 8 people from the Ghost Immortal sect began to be eliminated. By the time it was 2.5 hours, only 20 people remained on the field. How is it possible that there are still 8 people from the Northwest 5 nations? Of the 20 people on the field, 8 were actually from the Northwest 5 nations, which was shocking. Among these 8, the Great Qi state actually had 3. They were Qin Chen, Zhao Lingshan, and Wang Qiming. This Great Qi state is truly astonishing. It actually has 3 disciples who have persisted until now. This is 2.5 hours. Even the Great Wei dynasty has had many profound level geniuses eliminated, but this Great Qi state. Everyone was shocked, almost unable to believe it. Actually, there's nothing incomprehensible about this. At this moment, a clear and cold voice suddenly rang out, attracting everyone's attention. It was an old man with white hair and beard, also a renowned expert from one of the 5 nations, who said, "The will of the ancient southern capital already explained it very clearly. This second round of assessment tests the time a martial artist can withstand pressure. However, for the sake of fairness, the pressure exerted varies with age. Therefore, younger martial artists naturally endure less pressure than older ones." Qin Chen and the other 2 had previously participated in the blood spirit pool assessment. It is said that they are recent graduates of the Heavenly Star Academy, generally 15 or 16 years old. The pressure they endure is naturally far less than that of other geniuses. Being able to persist until now is only to be expected. Hearing this, everyone suddenly understood. That's right, Qin Chen and the others were simply too young compared to the others. Moreover, their cultivation levels were not low. The pressure they endured in this formation was naturally much less. In terms of true strength, they definitely couldn't compare with those profound level martial artists. Under such pressure, Qin Chen even vomited blood so many times before. This shows how weak his strength is. Someone sneered, mocking him. But there were also people whose eyes narrowed. 15 or 16 years old, yet already broken through to the late stage of the heaven realm. Such talent would not be considered weak even in the Great Wei dynasty. The 5 nations could actually nurture such a genius. Besides Qin Chen and the others, among the 5 nations, Yu Changxu of the Lingtian sect had also persisted. And Yu Changxu was only 18 years old, making her one of the youngest among all the participants. Everyone could understand this as well. What shocked everyone the most was the Ghost Immortal sect. The remaining 4 of the 8 people all came from the Ghost Immortal sect, and each of them appeared to be over 20 years old. Where did the Ghost Immortal sect find so many geniuses? Everyone was puzzled, their hearts shaken. Among the 5 nations, the one with the highest cultivation should be Yuan Feng of the Great Liang state, 24 years old, with a cultivation level of at least the mid-stage of the profound realm. However, he had already been eliminated less than 2.5 hours in. On the other hand, these Ghost Immortal sect experts, whose ages didn't seem to be much younger than Yuan Feng, were able to persist until now. In addition, this group of Ghost Immortal sect people had extremely mysterious origins, causing everyone to secretly become vigilant. I didn't expect there to be such a batch of geniuses within these 5 nations. What's going on? Aren't the Northwest 5 nations very remote? According to reason, it would be extremely difficult for geniuses to appear who could contend with our Great Wei dynasty. How did so many suddenly appear? The people of the Great Wei dynasty were stunned. Originally, in their imagination, no one in the Northwest 5 nations could compare with the Great Wei dynasty. But the results of the test surprised them somewhat. This is nothing. This ancient southern capital originated from the lands of these 5 nations. Perhaps the people of these 5 nations often conduct assessments and have summarized some experience. At this time, someone sneered, his attitude arrogant. That's right. The so-called tests of the first 3 levels are only for some screening. What truly determines the results is the final arena competition. Could it be that the people of these 5 nations can be a match for the geniuses of Ashwen province? Putting aside everything else, as long as young Master Daixin and the others are here, the people of these 5 nations simply won't be able to make any waves. Amidst the sneers, one contestant after another was eliminated. Wang Qiming was the first to be unable to hold on. He spat out blood and was blasted out of the formation. Buzz. Landing outside the formation, there was no trace of frustration on his face. Instead, he quickly sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes to comprehend. That intense pressure had a huge impact on him, who comprehended sword intent. The reason he was able to persist until now was also because of the sword intent. After Wang Qiming, one of the 4 people from the Ghost Immortal sect finally couldn't hold on and was eliminated. Following that was Zhao Lingshan, and then Yu Changxiu. In less than half an hour, only 5 people remained on the field. They were Hua Tiandu, Dai Tianyi, Leng Wushuang, Qin Chen, and a youth from the Ghost Immortal sect. The youth opened his eyes. Suddenly, bang! His entire body was blasted out, landing outside the square. This guy didn't seem to have reached his limit just now. He was blasted out on his own accord. In the formation, Qin Chen's gaze narrowed. What was the purpose of the other party doing this? He could be sure that the Ghost Immortal sect had already been completely wiped out by his grandfather and mother, leaving only some old, weak, and disabled soldiers. Even if there were hidden forces, it was impossible for such a group of experts to appear. Others couldn't see it, but with his perception, he had already discovered that the so-called Grand Elders of the Ghost Immortal sect were all 5th-level martial venerable experts. Moreover, they were definitely not ordinary martial venerables. The aura on their bodies was no less than that of the experts of the Great Wei dynasty. It was impossible for the 5 nations to have such experts. What were the origins of this group of people? Qin Chen couldn't help but ponder in his heart. After the youth was eliminated, only Qin Chen and the other 3 remained on the field. No way, it's those 4 again. The corners of their mouths twitched, and everyone almost vomited blood. During the first round of the Martial Dao Truth Assessment, these 4 were the only ones left competing at the final juncture. This time, it was actually these 4 again. The key was that it was understandable for the 3 great geniuses, Dai Tianyi, to last until now, but Qin Chen had been vomiting blood and swaying from the start of the competition, performing extremely poorly. Yet he was able to persist until now, leaving everyone dumbfounded and speechless. At this moment, they even suspected that Qin Chen and the will of the ancient southern capital had some kind of relationship. Otherwise, how could he be so lucky and not be eliminated in this second round until now? I was the first to be eliminated in the last round. I definitely can't be the first to lose in this round. Glancing at Dai Tianyi and Hua Tiandu, Leng Wushuang's expression was ferocious, and he roared in his heart. The other 2 had the same idea. As the 3 great geniuses of Xuan province, they would never allow themselves to lose to each other. As for Qin Chen, none of the 3 even glanced at him. In their hearts, their opponents were only each other. As for Qin Chen, who hadn't even broken through to the profound realm, he didn't even have the qualifications to be their opponent. Answer: on the ancient southern capital's assessment plaza, a strange scene unfolded. The 3 geniuses of Xuanzu, one by one, held their breaths and focused their minds, not daring to be careless in the slightest, all desperately resisting the pressure from the grand formation, their faces stern, exuding terrifying auras. Around them, terrifying cyclones swirled. Some blue, some red, some black. That was the terrifying true essence, forming invisible auras, resisting the majesty from the grand formation, leaving people shocked and amazed. And not far from them, there was still a young man sitting cross-legged, his body shaking non-stop, his face pale, continuously spitting out blood. Each time, the young man gave people the feeling that he was about to be unable to hold on, and might be eliminated in the next second. But each time after spitting out blood, he persevered, leaving everyone speechless. This was simply an unkillable cockroach. The key was, the pressure of this assessment formation would constantly increase with the passage of time, and was not fixed. But the young man was able to persevere time and time again, completely exceeding everyone's understanding. I don't believe that this kid can surpass young Master Dixon in this round. A genius from the De Wei dynasty said in disbelief. Before the words were finished, bang! With a roar, someone among the 3 geniuses couldn't hold on and was the first to be blasted out. It was Hua Tiandu. Damn it! I was actually the first to be eliminated. Wiping away the blood from the corner of his mouth, Hua Tiandu's face was gloomy, so depressed that blood was about to drip. Around him, a terrifying cold aura permeated, causing many geniuses around him to be as silent as cicadas in winter, and they retreated one after another. It's a pity. Hua Tiandu is the oldest of the 3, otherwise, he wouldn't have been eliminated so quickly. Outside the ancient southern capital, a strong person sighed like this. Although the three geniuses of Xuanzu were of similar age, there must be older and younger ones, and Hua Tiandu was the oldest of them. Bang! After Hua Tiandu, not long after, Leng Wushuang also couldn't hold on and was eliminated. Seeing that Dai Tianyi was still persevering in the grand formation, Leng Wushuang's eyes immediately became a little gloomy, but after seeing that Hua Tiandu was eliminated before him, he breathed a sigh of relief. Causing Hua Tiandu, who was not far away, to have his forehead veins throbbing wildly, his eyes cold and fierce. Ha ha ha! This young master is the last one again. It seems that the will of this ancient southern capital also knows that this young master is the most powerful genius in Xuanzu. After Dai Tianyi was eliminated, he laughed excitedly again. In the first round of martial Dao true meaning assessment, he was the last of the three to be eliminated, and he didn't expect that in the second round of assessment, he was still the last one. He was extremely excited. In my opinion, the two of you are not my opponent at all. If you are smart, you might as well just admit defeat and withdraw from this ancient southern capital. If it were me, I would definitely not have the face to continue staying. Dai Tianyi chuckled strangely, his tone very cheap. Hearing this, Hua Tiandu and Leng Wushuang's faces darkened, and they were extremely unhappy in their hearts. What's so exciting about? You are the youngest of the three of us. You are just taking advantage of your age. If you have the ability, let's decide the victory on the arena. If it weren't for the fact that they couldn't fight in this ancient southern capital, the two of them would have teamed up to teach the other party a lesson. Dai Tianyi chuckled. Don't quibble, losing is losing. The dignified young master Lengshu and the Lu Xianzong's son wouldn't even have the courage to admit it. He. Self-righteous. Do you think you are the last one to be eliminated? Hua Tiandu and Leng Wushuang's forehead veins bulged, and they suddenly sneered. This. Dai Tianyi turned his head and saw that Qin Chen was still resisting the pressure of the grand formation in the grand formation. HMPH. This person naturally doesn't count. Dai Tianyi snorted coldly. Since we are participating in the assessment together, why doesn't he count? Hua Tiandu and Leng Wushuang sneered. Looking at Dai Tianyi's deflated face, at this time, the two of them even felt grateful to Qin Chen. If it weren't for Qin Chen, I'm afraid this Dai Tianyi would not know how arrogant he would be. On the plaza, the other contestants were also dizzy. After all this, Qin Chen was still the last one. It's really too unfair. What made people even more depressed was Qin Chen was still swaying, but he didn't look like he was going to be eliminated at all. This guy, can he still hold on for a while? Everyone was dumbfounded. Waiting speechlessly. Half an incense stick. An incense stick. Qin Chen was still half dead, and there was no sign of ending for a long time. When will this have to wait? Everyone was speechless, but there was no way. They had to sit cross-legged, cultivate, and wait. And at this time, in the grand formation, Qin Chen was still silently using the amazing pressure to cultivate. Every cell in his body was undergoing transformation under this amazing pressure, as if it had been reborn. The undying holy body was also constantly improving. Second level late stage. Second level peak. In the end, there were even faint bursts of subtle popping sounds from his body, like stir-fried soybeans. And whenever he couldn't hold on, Qin Chen would urge more true energy in his qi to make his resistance stronger. Finally, another hour passed. At this time, the true energy in his body had been urged to the extreme, and the undying holy body had also reached the extreme of the second level, only one step away from the third level. The strength of his entire body had increased by at least 50% compared to before the assessment. When the power of the grand formation increased again, puff, Qin Chen spat out a mouthful of blood, and could no longer hold on. His whole person was blasted out by the grand formation. Buzz. Invisible power descended, and the dazzling grand formation immediately disappeared, disappearing on the plaza. It's finally over. The crowd then woke up, and many people were even about to doze off. Just as they were concentrating, suddenly an amazing white light enveloped, sprinkled on everyone on the plaza. An amazing life force stirred from everyone's body. The injuries suffered under the pressure of the grand formation before were all healed, and the consumed true energy and true essence in the body were also restored, becoming incomparably full. The injuries on my body have actually healed. The hidden injuries I suffered before seem to have healed a lot too. What exactly is this white light? What a terrifying healing ability. The many geniuses who passed the second round were shocked, and they were all ecstatic. They didn't expect to have such treatment. Rumble. Just as they were ecstatic, suddenly a deafening roar sounded. Everyone looked up and saw that in the sky above the ancient southern capital, a huge black stone tablet suddenly appeared. The entire stone tablet was hundreds of feet high and nearly 100 meters wide. On the stone tablet, there were large and small marks, including knife marks, sword marks, fist prints, palm prints, etc., some shallow and some deep, almost countless. At first glance, it gave people an incomparably shocking feeling. The third round of assessment is the leaving mark tablet assessment. Each of you, use your true energy to attack the black stone tablet. As long as you can leave a mark on the black stone tablet more than 10 meters above, you will pass the third round of assessment. The rumbling voice of the black figure echoed in this world, causing everyone's eyes to focus. 10 meters. Everyone stared at the stone tablet. On the black stone tablet, densely packed, were traces, but also many blank spaces. The lowest of these traces were around 10 meters, with shallower depths, while the highest were almost in the middle of the stone tablet. Among them was a fist mark, located 50 to 60 zhang up the stone tablet. The entire fist mark was deeply embedded within the stone tablet, giving one a terrifying feeling of profoundness and vastness from afar. It was as if a single glance would shatter one's soul. This caused Dai Tianyi and the others to focus the gazes. 50 to 60 zhang was a distance of over 100 meters. It was almost impossible for a profound realm martial artist to leap to such a height. Even for a 5th-level martial sect expert, leaping this high would be no easy feat. Perhaps only a 6th-level martial venerable could accomplish it. Yet now, there were many traces above 100 meters on this stone tablet, causing Dai Tianyi and the others to frown slightly. According to the restrictions of ancient southern capital, only martial artists under the age of 24 could participate in the assessment. Could it be that these traces were left behind by geniuses who had participated in the assessment in the past? If that were the case, what kind of geniuses would be able to achieve this? Among the geniuses of your 5 nations, many should have participated in the ancient southern capital's assessment before. Are these traces left behind by the former geniuses of your 5 nations? Seemingly having the same doubts, many geniuses from the Great Wei dynasty couldn't help but turn their heads, looking at the geniuses left behind by the 5 nations, and asked. Among them, the 4th Prince Zhao Wei was stared at by a genius from the Great Wei dynasty. This. After hesitating for a moment, Zhao Wei said with a wry smile, although I am a genius from the 5 nations, this is also my first time participating in the ancient southern capital competition. This trace-leaving stone tablet is naturally also the first time I've seen it. However, according to my understanding, the 5 nations competition has a history of 100 years. During these 100 years, the ancient southern capital has appeared 19 times, but there has never been an assessment where a trace-leaving stone tablet appeared. Zhao Wei stated definitively, as a person from the 5 nations, in order to participate in this competition, he would naturally investigate. However, in the 100-year history of the 5 nations, this trace-leaving stone tablet was indeed the first time it had appeared. Not only Zhao Wei, but the other geniuses from the 5 nations also gave the same answer. This caused the many geniuses of the Great Wei dynasty to frown. In that case, this trace-leaving stone tablet should be like the martial arts essence of the first stage, activated due to special conditions. And since the traces on this trace-leaving stone tablet were not left by people from the 5 nations, then it was very likely that they were left by geniuses who accepted the ancient southern capital's assessment during a certain period between the 5 nations. Even, they could be traces left by the geniuses of this ancient southern capital's power itself, before the Dark Ages and before the power was destroyed. However, even the geniuses before the Dark Ages couldn't have left traces at a distance of over 100 meters, right? Dai Tianyi and the others were still puzzled. Moreover, the traces at the very top did not seem to be left by ordinary martial artists. The strength of the person who left them was definitely far beyond them. Don't think so much. The most important thing now is to pass this third round of assessment. Coming back to their senses, the crowd once again stared at the black stone tablet in front of them. A height of 10 meters shouldn't be difficult, right? Any heavenly realm martial artist can leap more than 10 meters with a single jump. The only difficulty should be leaving a trace on this black stone tablet. What the ancient southern capitals will said earlier was true chi trace leaving, which means that the physical body cannot have any contact with the black stone tablet. One can only use true chi to attack the black stone tablet. When a martial artist breaks through to the profound realm, true chi condenses into true force, and the power is strong enough to cut through metal and break stone. Not to mention a stone tablet, even a piece of profound iron can be left with traces. It shouldn't be a problem. Hee, those heavenly realm martial artists with thin true chi shouldn't have it so easy. The crowd discussed and secretly speculated. At the same time, those profound realm geniuses all looked at the remaining heavenly realm martial artists, with a faint smile on the corners of their mouths. In their view, Qin Chen and the others, these heavenly realm martial artists, didn't even need to think. They were definitely the ones who would be eliminated first in this round. It shouldn't be that simple, right? But some people frowned slightly. If it were really that simple, almost 80% of the people present would be able to pass the assessment. Would so many people enter the arena competition? You have one incense stick's worth of time to sense the aura of the black stone tablet. At this moment, the black figure towering in the sky spoke in a rumbling voice. Immediately afterward, buzz. The black stone tablet suddenly bloomed with black light, enveloping everyone. What? Everyone's minds suddenly stagnated, and their souls suffered an invisible impact. Some geniuses, caught off guard, swayed and almost knelt to the ground, their foreheads covered in dense cold sweat. What a terrifying pressure. The crowd was shocked, their faces pale. They all knew that this third round of assessment would not be so simple. Now that they saw it, it was indeed so. Standing outside the black stone tablet, a thick aura of pressure immediately came over, as if carrying a small mountain on their backs. Under such pressure, the testers would definitely need to expend a lot of energy to resist the pressure, and then try to leave traces on the black stone tablet. In this way, the difficulty was increased by at least one time. Just as everyone was in awe. Time's up. Start the assessment. The black figure spoke in a rumbling voice, and then a white light shot at a genius from the Great Wei dynasty. This Great Wei dynasty genius was quite young, and his cultivation was at the late stage peak of the heavenly realm. Being selected first, not only did he not have a nervous expression on his face, but he also had a hint of ease. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, he came to the black stone tablet with a calm expression. Although the pressure of this black stone tablet is terrifying, the cultivation technique I practice is a high-grade profound rank technique. This pressure can only limit about 30% of my cultivation. Leaving traces above 10 meters shouldn't be difficult. He smiled, full of confidence. Then, he suddenly shouted, "Rise!" In the midst of the shout, his figure suddenly soared into the sky, like a soaring falcon, his figure ethereal and extremely relaxed. It's Zhang Qi from Sky Falcon Valley. I didn't expect that the first one selected would be him. Although this person's cultivation is only at the late stage peak of the heavenly realm, the flying falcon body technique of Sky Falcon Valley is extremely terrifying. Coupled with the Sky Falcon True Chi, which is indestructible, leaving traces on it shouldn't be difficult. Let's watch. With Zhang Qi's cultivation, not to mention leaving traces at 10 meters, even 30 meters is not impossible. The crowd discussed, full of confidence in Zhang Qi. Especially the experts from the Great Wei dynasty, almost all of them had smiles on their faces. What? But before the smiles on their faces could fully bloom, suddenly, everyone's eyeballs widened, as if they had seen a ghost, revealing a horrified expression. This. How is this possible? On the plaza, Zhang Qi's entire body soared into the sky, rapidly rising to a height of 20 meters, but before he had time to attack, with a bang, a look of horror appeared on his face, and his entire body, like a kite with a broken string, flew backward heavily and fell on the plaza. What's going on? What exactly just happened? Why was Zhang Qi sent flying before he could even make a move? Everyone erupted in an uproar, their eyes wide with disbelief. Their confident Zhang Qi was sent flying without even getting a chance to attack. What on earth happened? The many powerful experts from the ancient southern capital outside were all stunned. The other geniuses on the plaza were also horrified, each one dumbfounded. Because no one understood what had just occurred. Only Zhang Qi felt depressed and terrified. In order to show off his movement technique in front of everyone, he had strived upwards, only wanting to leave his mark in a higher place. But he never expected that the pressure on this black stone tablet wasn't constant. The higher one went, the stronger the pressure became. He simply hadn't anticipated such a situation, and before he could react, he had already been sent flying. After falling, his mind was filled with fear, and he looked up at the black figure. Almost simultaneously, a white light enveloped him. Failed to leave a mark on the imprint stone tablet, eliminated. The black figure coldly stared down at Zhang Qi and spoke in a rumbling voice. No. Give me another chance. I wasn't prepared just now. Zhang Qi's face was filled with terror, and he hurriedly shouted. However, the white light had already enveloped him, and with a hum, he was teleported out of the ancient southern capital city, falling to the ground with a thud. Each of you only has one chance. Please cherish it. The black figure spoke indifferently. Outside the ancient southern capital, Zhang Qi's face was pale, so frustrated that he was about to vomit blood. If he had known this would happen, why did he show off earlier? He could have just left a mark at the 10-meter mark, right? At this moment, after his elimination, many experts gathered around, asking what had just happened. This. Zhang Qi hesitated, stammering, his eyes flickering, clearly not wanting to reveal the truth and alert the later contestants. It's the pressure. But someone still carefully recalled the events and discovered a clue, saying in a deep voice, the pressure on this black stone tablet shouldn't be constant. Instead, the higher the distance, the greater the pressure. Once this conclusion was reached, everyone understood. Upon careful thought, it did indeed seem to be the case. In an instant, the other contestants on the field became vigilant, each one incredibly nervous. No one noticed that Qin Chen, among the crowd, revealed a hint of ecstasy in his eyes. These 3 rounds of assessment seem random, but in reality, each round has a unique purpose. The first round, the martial Dao essence assessment, is meant to allow martial artists to comprehend the essence of the martial Dao and understand the use of true energy. The second round, the Great Formation Pressure Assessment, outwardly tests the strength and perseverance of a martial artist's physical body, but in reality, it allows the martial artist to temper their physical body within the Great Formation. And this third round, on the surface, the aura of the imprint stone tablet is setting an obstacle for everyone's assessment, but in reality, it should be using the pressure of the imprint stone tablet to allow martial artists to temper their souls. The ancient southern capital is indeed terrifying, actually able to use such methods to enhance a martial artist's soul. What exactly is this imprint stone tablet? Qin Chen was shocked, then delighted. Other martial artists were researching how to resist this pressure, but he deliberately released his soul power, attempting to temper it under this pressure. As long as his soul was tempered, he would naturally not fear the influence of the pressure, and leaving a mark on it would naturally be a matter of course, effortless. Second place. At this time, after Zhang Qi was eliminated, the second contestant was quickly selected. It was also a genius from a great Wei dynasty, with a cultivation base also at the late stage peak of the heaven realm. Having seen Zhang Qi's example, that person didn't dare to be careless, and came to the black stone tablet with an extremely solemn expression. It's someone from the Li family, the Gun King of Black Swamp City. This person is called Li Cheng, right? His talent is not bad. It is said that his heaven-piercing spear technique already has 30% of its power. Rumor has it that he once killed 3 late-stage peak heaven realm martial artists with a single spear thrust. His strength is extraordinary. Murmurs came from the crowd. I have a question. Li Cheng came to the black stone tablet but didn't attack directly. Instead, he said in a deep voice. Speak. The black figure lowered its head and emitted a rumbling sound. Is it permissible to use weapons? The Li family was famous for their spear techniques, and their most terrifying aspect was their spear techniques. If he couldn't use his spear techniques, then his strength would be reduced by at least half. This was not only Li Cheng's concern but also the concern of other geniuses who specialized in weapons. Permitted. The black figure's words made the other martial artists who specialized in weapons breathe a sigh of relief. Good. Having received a definite answer, Li Cheng's expression was solemn as he stared at the imprint stone tablet in front of him, and his figure suddenly shot forward. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After entering the range of the stone tablet, his figure clearly swayed. Everyone knew that this was because he was affected by the pressure of the imprint stone tablet, but soon, this person adjusted, and his whole being was like a nimble leopard, flying to the front of the imprint stone tablet in a few strides. Rise! He let out a low roar, and his whole body soared like a swallow, his figure ethereal and incomparably light, instantly flying above the 10-meter line of the imprint stone tablet, as if he were a falling leaf, showing no signs of strain. What graceful movements! Perfect explosiveness! Truly amazing! Many people exclaimed in admiration. The ancient southern capital's first and second rounds of assessment were testing the contestants' most basic skills, so the true combat strength of each contestant on the field had never been shown. But this third round could easily show a contestant's movement technique and strength, very directly. Look! He's about to leave his name on the imprint stone tablet. Amidst the exclamations, a black spear suddenly appeared in Li Cheng's hand. The spear was entirely dark, made of black iron, and emitted a cold metallic luster. Boom! A terrifying aura erupted from Li Cheng's body, and a black flame seemed to engulf the spear, stirring up a violent hurricane. In an instant, the eyes of everyone in the audience instantly focused on the spear in Li Cheng's hand. Boom! As if thunder had struck, Li Cheng thrust out his spear, the spear shadow transforming into a black tornado. A spiral black force suddenly erupted from the tip of the spear, fiercely impacting the imprint stone tablet. Bang! Under the astonished gaze of everyone, the hurricane-like spear force suddenly exploded after hitting the imprint stone tablet, instantly shattering into pieces and disappearing without a trace. Looking at the imprint stone tablet, there wasn't a single mark. How could this be? His body flying backward under the force of the impact, Li Cheng stared blankly at the imprint stone tablet, which was completely unmarked, a deep sense of disbelief in his eyes. Failed to leave a mark on the imprint stone tablet, eliminated. The black figure's cold voice sounded indifferently at the same time, like the judgment of the Grim Reaper. How could this be? At this moment, everyone was stunned. Li Cheng's aura was extraordinary, and the gang energy condensed on the black refined iron spear was also very terrifying, enough to pierce stone and penetrate gold. Let alone a stone tablet, even a piece of steel could be pierced with a hole, but in the end, it failed to leave a mark on the stone tablet. The surrounding crowd looked shocked and unbelievable. No. Impossible. Li Cheng also shook his head blankly, his face full of disbelief. He didn't believe that with his strength, he couldn't even leave a mark. But the assessment result would not change according to his will. Buzz! An invisible force descended, instantly teleporting Li Cheng, who had a deathly grey face, out. Next. After that, the black figure said indifferently in the sky. The genius who was selected after Li Cheng clearly showed a trace of panic on his face. Originally, he thought that leaving a mark on the black stone tablet was a very simple matter, but now it seems that it is not simple. Adjusting his breath, he gritted his teeth fiercely and suddenly rushed into the range of the stone tablet. Whoosh! With his legs stepping on the ground, this person stared fixedly at the stone tablet in front of him, and the true energy in his body was running wildly, and the whole person soared into the sky. Everyone present stared at him intently. It can be seen that because of Li Cheng's failure just now, this person's spirit is highly concentrated, and his movements are very steady, step by step, without any rashness. After a few breaths, this person had already reached a height of 10 meters. Go! His eyes were extremely sharp, and he shouted loudly, his iron fists shining with golden light, like a round of golden sun, condensing the terrifying great sun radiance, and slammed heavily on the black stone wall in front. Boom! The golden sun collided with the black stone tablet, and the stone tablet seemed to contain an amazing power, which suddenly erupted, and in an instant, it shook the golden sun away, turning into a sky full of golden fist winds, bursting and dissipating into the void. There were no traces left on the black stone tablet, as smooth as new. Not good. That person's face was deathly grey, his heart was shocked and angry, and he wanted to strike again, but a force suddenly came and shook him away. Failed. Failed again. Everyone looked at the person who fell to the ground with a frustrated expression, and their moods were extremely heavy. Especially those geniuses who participated in the assessment, their hearts were even more depressed, and their brows were slightly wrinkled. Originally, they thought that leaving a mark on the stone tablet was a very simple matter, but the successive failures of the geniuses in front of them made them realize that this third round of assessment was not simple. What exactly is this black stone tablet made of? It's so hard. Although the cultivation of the previous 3 people was only at the late peak of the heaven realm, they are not unknown people in Maishuan province, otherwise it would be impossible for them to pass the first 2 rounds of assessment, but they don't even have the ability to leave a mark on the stone tablet. Could it be that true power is required to leave a mark? The crowd was agitated, especially some warriors whose cultivation was only at the late stage of the heaven realm. Their faces were even more deathly grey, and their hearts were bleak. The failure of the previous 3 people made him instantly understand that it was almost impossible to leave a mark with the cultivation of the late stage of the heaven realm. It's good that the assessment is more difficult, at least some guys who are just making up the numbers should be eliminated. If the cultivation is not enough, no matter how sharp you were before, you will not escape the fate of being eliminated. You don't even have the cultivation of the profound realm, and you want to compete in this ancient Nandu arena competition. Ridiculous. Among the crowd, only the 3 great geniuses, Dai Qianyi and others, had a sneer on their lips, and they did not take this round of assessment to heart. They claimed that they could completely leave the names on the stone tablet, and even have an amazing performance. Next, buzz. A white light enveloped a genius of the Dewei dynasty in the early stage of the profound realm. Is it my turn? That genius, wearing a black robe, had a handsome face, and there was a heroic spirit wantonly flaunting between his eyebrows. Although 3 people had failed before, no trace of timidity could be seen in his eyes. On the contrary, there was a strong confidence. Whoosh! His figure, like a gust of wind, swept in front of the black stone tablet, and the speed was as fast as lightning. This person is Qian Qingfeng of the Wuxiang sect. 20 years old, breaking through the profound realm, and now a year has passed, his cultivation has already reached the peak of the early stage of the profound realm. If his cultivation is still unable to leave a mark on this black stone tablet, then I am afraid that there will be very few players who pass. A solemn voice came from outside ancient Nandu, and everyone was staring at Qian Qingfeng without blinking. So far, no one has successfully left a mark, which has to make people nervous and worried. At this moment, Qian Qingfeng had already suddenly soared into the sky. After his figure reached a height of 10 meters, not only did he not stop, but he continued to rise. Everyone frowned, and their faces showed speechless expressions. The previous 3 people did not even have the qualifications to leave the names at 10 meters. This Qian Qingfeng, although his cultivation is stronger than the previous 3, but he does not want to leave a mark at 10 meters, and he still wants to continue to go up. Is it too reckless? But at this moment, there was no wave in Qian Qingfeng's heart. Qian Qingfeng, am a genius of the Wuxiang sect. If I leave a mark at the position of 10 meters, it would be embarrassing. My goal is at least 20 meters. His eyes were indifferent, and his heart was cold. However, when he rose to a height of 15 meters, his figure stagnated, and then his face suddenly changed. That terrifying pressure was increasing crazily, almost exponentially. I can't do it anymore. He was shocked in his heart, and at this moment, he had a feeling of being unable to stabilize himself. I can't go any further. In a critical moment, Qian Qingfeng did not dare to continue upward, and the true energy in his body was running wildly, and in an instant, it condensed together. Buzz. On his right hand, an amazing aura bloomed, as if a Buddha was probing his fingers in the sky, wanting to enlighten all living beings. Wuxiang Tribulation Finger. Boom. A series of overlapping finger shadows burst out from his right hand, and the air was stirred up with ripples, as if it had been penetrated. The finger shadow contained a terrifying hurricane, and with a pop, it pointed on the black stone wall, leaving a shallow fingerprint. In the next moment, the whole person had been shaken away and fell on the square. Wow! The crowd was in an uproar in an instant. Left a mark. Wuxiang Tribulation Finger is the secret book of the Wuxiang sect, with infinite power. It is indeed extraordinary. Countless people were excited. Although Qian Qingfeng's fingerprint was extremely blurred, almost inaudible, and compared with other traces around it, it seemed extremely inconspicuous, but at least, it was indeed clearly engraved on the stone tablet at 15 meters, and anyone could see it clearly. Leaving a mark, passing the assessment. At the same time, a white light descended, enveloping Qian Qingfeng, and teleporting him to the other side of the square, causing a sensation in the audience. On the other side of the square. That was close. His heart pounded, Qian Qingfeng's face was pale, and sweat dripped from his forehead. He had wanted to amaze everyone, but he had not expected the pressure on the stone tablet to be so terrifying. If he hadn't reacted in time, he would probably have been eliminated and lost the qualification to participate in the arena and receive the inheritance. Fortunately, at the critical moment, he turned the tide and stayed. It seems that you really need profound level true power to leave a mark. Now I can rest assured. If Qian Qingfeng can leave a mark, I think I should be able to too. Seeing this scene, the geniuses who had reached the profound level all breathed a sigh of relief. Since Qian Qingfeng could do it, they might be able to as well. It's my turn. The next one to be chosen was still a martial artist in the early stage of the profound level. With Qian Qingfeng's experience, this person looked confident and quickly soared into the sky. He even wanted to keep pace with Qian Qingfeng and leave a mark at a height of 15 meters. However, when he rushed to a height of 15 meters, he realized how terrifying the pressure was in this place. Boom! Under this pressure, he was like a small boat on the sea after a storm, about to be destroyed at any moment. In a hurry, he quickly made a full effort. Bang! True power agitation burst open on the black stone tablet, but the entire stone tablet was empty, and nothing was left. Senior Gu Nandu, please give me another chance, The genius looked terrified and wanted to get another chance. However, a formless white light descended, and the black figure remained silent, directly teleporting him out. If I had known, I would have made a move at 10 meters, maybe I would have had a chance. The genius looked ashen, his heart filled with despair. And even more desperate were the remaining geniuses at the late stage of the heaven level. Even profound level martial artists can't leave a mark on this stone tablet. Zhao Wei and the others trembled wildly, their eyes filled with despair. Even Wang Qiming and the others, who were full of fighting spirit, looked uneasy. Those who can become geniuses are all extremely proud and will not be timid in the slightest. However, even if they are proud, seeing that the profound level geniuses of the Great Wei dynasty cannot leave a mark on the stone tablet, it is inevitable that they will feel uneasy and fearful. Everyone, don't be nervous. In fact, it is not easy to leave a mark on this stone tablet, but it is not difficult either. When everyone was uneasy, suddenly, a gentle voice echoed in everyone's mind. Young Master Chen, Wang Qiming, Zhao Lingshan, and others were all shocked and looked over. Young Master Chen, what do you mean? Wang Qiming had already admired Qin Chen immensely, his eyes lit up, and he quickly asked through voice transmission. Qin Chen did not answer, but instead asked, Everyone, what do you think is the purpose of Gu Nandu's will in assessing us? Of course, it is to screen the contestants. Wang Qiming and others frowned. They did not understand what Qin Chen meant by asking this. In fact, that is not entirely the case. Qin Chen's voice echoed in the minds of several people. While selecting geniuses, Gu Nandu's will is also observing everyone's learning ability. This round of martial arts essence assessment is not only an assessment but also a test of everyone's ability to understand the control of true energy. The second round, the formation pressure assessment, is also the same, testing everyone's ability to improve their physical bodies under strong pressure. As for this third round, the stone tablet assessment, in addition to assessing your own cultivation and movement techniques, it also assesses everyone's ability to adapt to soul pressure. Assess the ability to adapt to soul pressure. Everyone fell into deep thought. Upon careful consideration, it seemed that the previous 2 rounds of assessments were indeed as Qin Chen said. While they withstood the assessments, they did improve in terms of true energy comprehension and physical strength. Therefore, in this 3rd round, if you resist the pressure of this stone tablet as before, it is the worst approach. In this way, you can only exert 3 or 4/10ths of your own strength. The correct approach is to adapt to this pressure, comprehend this pressure, and make this pressure an external part of yourself. When you can adapt to this pressure, not only will your soul resistance ability be improved, but you will also be able to easily leave a mark on this stone tablet. Adapt to this pressure. Everyone's bodies shook. Was this really possible? Since young Master Chen said so, then it must be possible. Wang Qiming had always firmly believed in Qin Chen, and immediately sat down cross-legged, began to comprehend the pressure on the stone tablet in front of him, adapt to it, and learn from it. Seeing this, the others followed suit, no longer doubting, and began to comprehend. Because for them, this was indeed the only way. After a while, several disciples of the Great Qi Kingdom almost simultaneously shook their bodies and opened their eyes. This was really feasible. Before, when they tried their best to resist, they only felt that the pressure was vast and unstoppable. However, when they slowly tried to adapt and comprehend, they immediately discovered that this force seemed to gradually become less terrifying. Instead, it formed a terrifying pressure, allowing them to gain some understanding and improvement in terms of will. Hiss! They couldn't help but gasp and looked at Qin Chen in horror. Especially Xiao Jing, who opened his mouth in surprise. He prided himself on being the oldest genius in the Great Qi Kingdom and the one with the highest cultivation among everyone, only half a step away from entering the profound level. Therefore, he had always regarded himself as the leader of the team. But now, he deeply knew how terrifying this young man, who had once brought miracles to the Great Qi Kingdom, was. At this time, the test on the square continued. So far, a total of 10 people had been tested, but only 3 martial artists had left a mark. All the contestants' faces were filled with misery. The probability of 3 out of 10 was undoubtedly an extremely tragic number. That is to say, of the last 250 people, only about 75 people would pass the assessment and enter the arena. Among them, none of the geniuses below the profound level had passed the assessment, and even some of the profound level geniuses had failed to leave a mark. Among the contestants currently being assessed, there are no top geniuses yet. It seems that in the end, only less than 100 of these 250 contestants will pass the assessment and enter the arena. Everyone sighed, especially the people of the 5 nations. Their faces were even more gloomy. According to the rule that heaven-level martial artists will definitely be eliminated, I am afraid that only about 10 of the remaining geniuses from the 5 nations will be left. This was undoubtedly an extremely tragic number. Especially Xiao Zhan, his heart was full of bitterness. So far, the Great Qi Kingdom's results had been extremely amazing. Including Qin Chen, Xiao Jing, Zhao Wei, Zhao Lingshan, Zixun, and Wang Qiming, a total of 6 contestants had entered the 3rd round. However, none of these 6 people were profound-level martial artists. That is to say, in the end, all 6 of them would almost be eliminated, without exception. The others from the 5 nations obviously understood this as well and all looked at Xiao Zhan with pity. And at this time, next, buzz. A white light enveloped the 4th Prince Zhao Wei. Finally, it's here. Was the nightmare of the Great Qi Kingdom about to begin? Xiao Zhan's face was bitter, and his heart was ashen. On the plaza. Is it my turn? His body trembled. Zhao Wei stood up. His eyes flashed with apprehension. Before the test even began, sweat was already seeping from his palms. Another late-stage heaven-level warrior. No need to watch. With his cultivation, he'll definitely be eliminated. That's right. He's just going through the motions. Poor people from the 5 nations. The crowd's mockery grew louder, intensifying the tension in Zhao Wei's heart. 4th Prince, there's no need to be nervous. Just unleash your full power. With your cultivation, you'll definitely leave a mark on the stone tablet of imprints. Just then, a gentle voice softly rang out, giving Zhao Wei confidence. It also drew everyone's attention. Oh, it's the Qin Chen. What did he just say? Just unleash your full power, and you'll definitely leave a mark. Am I hearing things? Ha ha ha. He sure knows how to talk. How could a heaven-level guy like that leave a mark on the stone tablet of imprints? You believe that? That kid is just trying to give himself some confidence. I remember now, Qin Chen himself is just a heaven-level warrior, right? Ha ha, ha ha ha. The crowd doubled over, nearly bursting with laughter. The previous assessment had already proven one thing: heaven-level warriors couldn't leave a mark on it. Even profound-level warriors, unless they reached the peak of the early profound level, faced a certain risk. Yet Qin Chen actually said that as long as you try hard, you'll definitely leave your name. What a joke. Everyone treated it as a joke. Except for Zhao Wei. Since young Master Chen said so, then I definitely can. A glint flashed in his eyes, and the apprehension in Zhao Wei's eyes turned into determination as he slowly walked towards the stone tablet of imprints. Buzz. A powerful pressure bore down, and the terrifying aura made it almost impossible for Zhao Wei to breathe just standing in front of the stone tablet of imprints. Don't panic. Young Master Chen said that resisting the pressure is the worst approach. The real method is to adapt to it, to make the pressure a kind of external environment, to make the soul immune to it. Zhao Wei took a deep breath. If Qin Chen had told him this method at this time, Zhao Wei wouldn't have been able to do it with his talent. However, after an incense stick's worth of time to prepare, Zhao Wei had already familiarized himself with this pressure in advance. Gradually, he felt himself merging into this pressure, and the intense feeling of oppression seemed to become slightly weaker. Zhao Wei knew that this was just an illusion. The pressure hadn't lessened, but his resistance to it was gradually changing. Hey, this kid seems a little strange. Look at his expression, he doesn't really think he can leave a mark on the stone tablet of imprints, does he? Too naive. Even a profound-level warrior's true energy might not leave a mark. He's just a heaven-level warrior, his true energy hasn't even been transformed, why does he think that? Amidst the crowd's doubts, Zhao Wei suddenly moved. Bang! His legs pushed off the ground, and his whole body suddenly soared into the sky, his movements ordinary, without any flashy techniques. Boom! As he ascended, the pressure from the stone tablet of imprints increased wildly. But Zhao Wei didn't resist. Instead, he closed his eyes, sensing and familiarizing himself with this pressure. Almost instantly, he reached a height of 10 meters. Go! With an explosive shout, Zhao Wei suddenly opened his eyes, his whole body rotating in the air, using the rotation to instantly transfer all his strength into his right hand, and punched out. Boom! The power of the fist was mighty, turning into a shocking tornado, roaring and howling, fiercely colliding with the stone tablet of imprints. With a dong sound, the fist's power collided with the stone tablet of imprints, shattering instantly, falling apart, and the violent wind from the fist scattered and shot out, bursting out with a piercing whistle. Ha ha ha! With this little power, he wants to leave a mark. Weak. Too weak. It can't even compare to the attacks of the few profound-level warriors from my Great Wei dynasty before. Before the result could even come out, many warriors of the Great Wei dynasty were already laughing loudly. Because they were very clear that the power of Zhao Wei's attack couldn't compare to the few profound-level warriors of the Great Wei dynasty before. And before, even those few great profound-level warriors hadn't left a mark on the stone tablet of imprints, so Zhao Wei now was even more impossible. Amidst the laughter, everyone looked at the stone tablet of imprints. At this time, the mighty wind from the fist had already dissipated, and the previously blurred black stone tablet gradually became clear. Look! I told you this kid couldn't leave a mark. Gah! What? A genius, smug, stopped halfway through his words. Suddenly, his eyeballs bulged, and his whole person seemed to be choked, his eyeballs protruding. The other mocking geniuses were also stunned, one by one they were dumbfounded. Only to see a shallow fist mark appearing on the stone tablet of imprints, which clearly hadn't been there before. Left a mark, passed. A white light flashed, and Zhao Wei was teleported to the other side of the plaza. I really passed. His face flushed. Zhao Wei was stunned, and even now, he hadn't been able to react, his whole body trembling with excitement. Young Master Chen, I passed. Muttering to himself, Zhao Wei looked at Qin Chen excitedly, his eyes filled with tears. With a slight smile, Qin Chen nodded. Whoosh. At this time, the entire plaza was already in an uproar. What's going on? What exactly happened just now? Why could that guy leave a mark on the stone tablet of imprints? He's clearly just a heaven-level warrior. Everyone was shocked. One by one they were dumbfounded, almost unable to believe their eyes. At the same time, they were completely confused. But Zhao Wei's result undoubtedly injected a shot in the arm to the other heaven-level warriors present, and one by one they became excited. Perhaps the reason why no heaven-level warriors had left a mark before wasn't because heaven-level warriors couldn't do it, but just because such a person hadn't appeared yet. Amidst the excited discussions, the assessment continued. With Zhao Wei in front, the other geniuses were greatly boosted in confidence, and everyone tried their best. Actually, it slightly increased the pass rate of the assessment. However, Zhao Wei was the only heaven-level warrior who passed afterwards, making people suspect that this was an accident. Next. Swish. A white light enveloped Xiao Jing. With Zhao Wei's example, Xiao Jing's confidence greatly increased. He held his breath and concentrated, leaping to a height of 10 meters, and striking out with all his strength. Dong. Palm energy crisscrossed, and a shallow palm print immediately appeared on the stone tablet of imprints. Seeing this, Xiao Jing smiled and was teleported to the side. Whoosh. The whole place instantly exploded. Another heaven stage martial artist. Seems like they're also from Qin Chen's side. What's going on? Did all the Great Qi Kingdom contestants take some kind of pill? The crowd erupted, practically going insane. Especially those geniuses outside the ancient southern capital who had broken through to the profound stage but hadn't left any marks were almost in tears. They considered themselves extraordinary, exerting all their strength and trying their hardest, yet they couldn't leave a mark on the stone tablet of marks. These two fellows, on the other hand, were only at the late heaven stage, yet they could leave marks. This was simply unfair. Next, the test continued. Soon, Zhao Lingshan, Zixun, and Wang Qiming were also selected. The results of these three completely stunned everyone, leaving them all shocked and speechless. Among them, Zixun wasn't limited to a height of 10 meters but went up a few more, finally leaving a mark at 13 meters. Zhao Lingshan was even more exaggerated, leaving a sword mark at 16 meters. The most monstrous was still Wang Qiming. He was the last to be selected, so he had the longest time to comprehend the pressure of the stone tablet of marks. Moreover, he had already comprehended sword intent. The combination of these two factors allowed him to adapt to the pressure the most, ultimately leaving a saber mark at a height of 19 meters, almost breaking through 20 meters. This caused a shock throughout the audience, leaving them silent for a long time. It should be known that, so far, the highest mark left by any contestant was only at a distance of 21 meters. However, that person was a mid-profound stage martial artist from Xuanzhou. And this Wang Qiming was clearly only at the late heaven stage, yet he could be on par with the opponent's results. This outcome was undoubtedly unexpected by everyone. What's going on? What exactly is going on? Could it be that Qin Chen's good luck had suddenly transferred to the other disciples of the Great Qi Kingdom? Thinking of this, the corners of everyone's mouths couldn't help but twitch. Comparing people really is infuriating. In the crowd, Qin Chen nodded slightly. Wang Qiming's comprehension ability was indeed terrifying. Among the geniuses he had seen, he was a rather special one. If only looking at talent, it was estimated that Wang Qiming, Lin Qian, and Zhang Ying were probably on the same level. Such geniuses were only unremarkable because they were born in the remote Five Nations region. In fact, with such talent, even if they were placed in the martial domain, they wouldn't be ordinary people. Thinking of this, Qin Chen couldn't help but shake his head slightly. It was a pity that Lin Qian and Zhang Ying didn't have the opportunity to participate in the ancient southern capital assessment. Otherwise, with their talent, the gains would definitely not be small. He just didn't know how they were doing now in the Great Qi Kingdom. With the examples of the few people from the Great Qi Kingdom. In the following assessment, all the geniuses went all out. They didn't believe that they couldn't pass an assessment that even people from the remote Five Nations could complete. For a time, everyone's fighting spirit soared. As a result, everyone was greatly excited. The pass rate for the third round of assessment actually greatly increased. In addition to Wang Qiming and the others, among the Great Wei dynasty and the other contestants from the 5 nations, there were also heaven stage martial artists who left marks on the stone tablet of marks and passed the assessment. This result made everyone feel like they had been injected with chicken blood. Their fighting spirit soared in an instant. Soon, Yu Changxu was also selected. It's Yu Changxu, the top genius of the Lingtian sect. This person seemed to have offended young Master Dixing before with that Qin Chen. It would be good to see her eliminated. HMPH, this woman has an exquisite appearance. Even in my Great Wei dynasty, she can be considered a beauty. It's just a pity that she's too arrogant and doesn't look at her own status. Among the crowd, there were bursts of discussion. Beauties always have privileges, even in the world of martial artists. Before, when other contestants were tested, everyone would at most pay attention, but when Yu Changxu was tested, it immediately aroused the discussion of many people. Some were looking forward to her passing. Some were waiting to see her make a fool of herself. And some were simply admiring her. There were all sorts of opinions. Faced with the discussions of the crowd, Yu Changxu's expression was indifferent, without a trace of emotion, and she quietly came to the stone tablet of marks. Swish. With a slight pause, Yu Changxu's figure suddenly soared into the air. Her figure was ethereal and unparalleled, like Chang'e flying to the moon, or a fairy descending from the 9 heavens, ethereal as smoke, beautiful and moving. Just this movement technique alone caused a burst of exclamations from the surrounding crowd. And what was even more surprising was the height Yu Changxu was ascending. 10 meters, 15 meters, 20 meters. Soon, she reached a height of 25 meters. Is this guy crazy? Before, many mid-profound stage martial artists of the Great Wei dynasty had only left marks below 25 meters. This Yu Changxu actually went all the way up, exceeding a height of 25 meters. This was simply courting death. With her cultivation, it would already be remarkable to leave a mark below 15 meters. Going any higher was almost impossible. For a time, the crowd sighed incessantly. Swoosh. Finally, at a height of 27 meters, Yu Changxu stopped. At this height, the terrifying pressure was almost like a mountain pressing down on her. But Yu Changxu's eyes were cold, her gaze firm. Her body was like a colorful phoenix, and the long sword at her waist suddenly unsheathed, stabbing out with a brilliant sword. Poochie. A deep sword hole appeared on the stone tablet of marks. Immediately afterward, her whole person fell ethereally, her posture light, like a dream. Hua. A deafening roar sounded throughout the audience. The sound of discussion continued for a long time, like an explosion. A height of 27 meters. This was clearly the best result among all the geniuses tested so far. But now, it actually came from the hands of a heaven stage martial artist. How is this possible? The crowd was shocked and couldn't believe it. In the crowd, Qin Chen was also secretly amazed. As expected of Yu Changxu. Yu Changxu had comprehended sword intent several years ago and, in a very short time, had raised the sword intent to an extremely high level. In terms of talent, she even surpassed Wang Qiming. Such a person, placed in the martial domain, would definitely not be ordinary and would become a dazzling star. Such sharp sword intent. Haha, interesting. This woman has a beautiful appearance, amazing temperament, and extremely terrifying martial arts talent. It's just that her temper is a little bad, but I like it. The geniuses of the Great Wei dynasty all had their eyes lit up, revealing expressions of appreciation. Many geniuses even had their eyes shining, the gazes fiery. In fact, before, Yu Changxu's appearance had already amazed them. However, in their opinion, merely having a beautiful appearance was nothing. The Tianwu Continent was a world where martial artists were respected. No matter how beautiful a woman was, if she didn't have amazing martial arts cultivation, she would ultimately only become a plaything of the strong. But once she revealed amazing martial arts talent, she would definitely attract the pursuit of countless men. Haha, no wonder her temper was so fiery just now. She really has some skills. Even Dai Tianyi's eyes flashed, and a smile appeared on his lips, revealing interest. Spurred on by Yu Changxu's performance, the following geniuses showed even greater effort. Bang bang bang. One after another, they did what they could, leaving their marks at the highest positions possible. However, after more than 10 people, Yu Changxu remained at the highest position. Everyone was hoping that someone could break Yu Wenfeng's record. Next, swish. White light enveloped Yu Wenfeng. It's Yu Wenfeng. Many people's gazes focused on him. Among the 5 nations, Yu Wenfeng was known as the #1 genius. As early as 5 years ago, he had received the inheritance of the ancient southern capital. Moreover, he had already broken through to the profound realm 2 or 3 years ago, and his cultivation was extremely terrifying. There were even rumors within the Great Liang Kingdom that with Yu Wenfeng's talent, he would definitely be able to break through to the 5th level in the future and become the youngest martial ancestor expert in the history of the 5 nations. Although it was just a rumor, it showed the 5 nations' expectations for this person. No one doubted that he could leave a mark on it. The only question was at what height he would leave it. Because this was very likely to represent the highest level of the 5 nations. Yu Changxu, Arriving in front of the stone tablet of marks, Yu Wenfeng looked up slightly, his star-like eyes twinkling with brilliant light. I, Yu Wenfeng, am the most outstanding genius of the 5 nations, and only I can win a place for the 5 nations amidst the surrounding heroes of this great Wei dynasty. In the next moment, his figure suddenly soared into the sky. Boom! Terrifying true energy erupted, and strands of true energy surrounded him, blooming with brilliant light. That astonishing aura made people instantly sense his cultivation. Peak of the mid-stage profound realm. Among the 5 nations, there is actually such a genius. A peak mid-stage profound realm at the age of 24, even in Meishuan province, he can be considered a top genius. How could this be? Many experts and geniuses of the Great Wei dynasty were shocked in an instant. In their view, the land of the 5 nations was barren and desolate. It was already extremely remarkable to have a 24-year-old profound realm martial artist, let alone a mid-stage profound realm. But now, Yu Wenfeng's appearance shattered their thoughts and shocked them. While everyone was exclaiming in surprise, Yu Wenfeng's figure quickly ascended. 10 meters, 15 meters, 20 meters, 25 meters. Even when he reached Yu Changxu's height of 27 meters, he was still rising continuously. Is Yu Wenfeng going to break through the 30-meter mark? Everyone exclaimed in unison. 30 meters. Yu Wenfeng's figure did not stop at all at the height of 30 meters, and he was still rising continuously. The entire venue was instantly ignited. I can't do it anymore. A huge pressure suppressed Yu Wenfeng. At the height of 33 meters, Yu Wenfeng finally couldn't hold on any longer. His eyes were cold, and with a flash of light in his eyes, he suddenly threw a punch. Boom! The stone tablet of marks shook, leaving a clear fist mark. Then his body floated down, panting heavily on the ground. The entire scene was stunned. 33 meters, the latest record so far in the 3rd round of assessment. Everyone stared blankly at Yu Wenfeng, their hearts shaken. Previously, there were profound realm martial artists in the mid-stage of the Great Wei dynasty who participated in the test. But they all achieved results of just over 20 meters. They were not even as good as Yu Changxu's record. But this Yu Wenfeng actually reached 33 meters. This was definitely a shocking height. All the contestants who had participated in the assessment knew that for every meter they ascended in front of this stone tablet of marks, the pressure they had to endure was much more terrifying. This Yu Wenfeng was actually able to surpass the mid-stage profound realm martial artists of the Great Wei dynasty by 10 meters. Didn't this mean that his talent even far surpassed the geniuses of the Great Wei dynasty? How could they accept this? Admit that they were inferior to a genius from the remote land of the 5 nations. Where would they put their faces? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. I remember now, it is said that this person participated in the ancient southern capital arena competition 5 years ago, and won the victory and obtained the inheritance. Could it be because of this? There is such a thing. It seems that it should be because of this. This person once received the inheritance in the ancient southern capital, so he is naturally very familiar with the ancient southern capital. It makes sense that he can leave a mark on the stone tablet of marks. That's right. Look at those geniuses from the 5 nations. With the cultivation of the heavenly realm, they can actually leave marks at a height surpassing our Great Wei dynasty's profound realm geniuses, indicating that this stone tablet of marks does not purely depend on cultivation, but also has certain skills. That should be right. In the end, the people of the Great Wei dynasty attributed the reason to this and deeply agreed with it. Otherwise, it would be equivalent to admitting that they were inferior to the geniuses of the Five Nations, and they could not accept it even if they were beaten to death. Next, the assessment continued. But the sensation caused by Yuan Feng still did not stop. The experience of participating in the ancient southern capital assessment once could allow the remote land of the Five Nations to cultivate a genius who was not inferior to the Great Wei dynasty. Then, what kind of improvement would the geniuses of the Great Wei dynasty have in the future after participating in the assessment? Just thinking about it made him unable to help but feel excited and full of enthusiasm. Next, several more people participated in the assessment, and almost all of them were martial artists at the peak of the early stage of the profound realm, and there was even a genius in the mid-stage of the profound realm. However, even that genius in the mid-stage of the profound realm ultimately only left a mark at 25 meters, which was not even as good as Yu Changxiu. As for those few martial artists at the peak of the early stage of the profound realm, they were even more unbearable, almost all of them were around 17 meters. There was even one person who desperately wanted to soar to a higher place, but as a result, under the terrifying pressure, he did not even have the qualification to leave a mark and was directly eliminated. This undoubtedly poured a bucket of cold water on the crowd whose bodies were boiling with enthusiasm, and they did not dare to act rashly, and had to act according to their abilities. Swish! This time, the white light descended and selected a disciple of the Ghost Immortal sect. That disciple was dressed in black robes and had an extraordinary aura. He also performed extremely well in the second round. Bang! He leaped high and ultimately left a mark at the 31-meter mark, almost breaking Yuan Feng's record. This caused a sensation in the audience. This was simply illogical. One Yuan Feng was already so terrifying, and now another guy came. Was the land of the Five Nations really a remote area? It was simply full of experts. Below, two more people from the Ghost Immortal sect were selected. One left a mark at 29 meters, and the other at 32 meters. This shocked everyone and was unbelievable. A bunch of trash, you've lost all the face of Maixuan province. When the white light enveloped a young man in white, this person couldn't help but snort coldly as he looked at the marks on the stone tablet of marks. It's Xiao Jinghong, a genius from the Azure Cloud sect. I wonder at what height he can leave a mark. The Great Wei dynasty crowd was invigorated. Xiao Jinghong was one of the top geniuses from Xuan province, second only to Dai Tianyi and the other three great talents. He could be said to be one of the representatives of the level below the three great talents. He far surpassed ordinary Xuan province geniuses. The people of Xuan province were almost full of confidence in him. And he indeed did not disappoint the many experts of the Great Wei dynasty. Boom! A terrifying aura erupted under his feet. Almost in an instant, Xiao Jinghong had already reached the height of 30 meters. Moreover, his figure was still constantly rising. 30 meters, 35 meters, 39 meters. Finally, at the 39-meter mark, he etched his new name, setting a new record for the third round of assessment. Whoa! The entire arena erupted in an uproar. Hee hee, I knew it. The disciples of my Great Wei dynasty are the true geniuses. How can those from the Five Nations compare? An increase of 6 meters in one go. Xiao Jinghong is indeed a genius of the Azure Cloud sect. If he can achieve this, how terrifying will the young master Dai Xin and the others be? Let's wait and see. Xiao Jinghong's performance put the hearts of everyone in the Great Wei dynasty at ease, and their faces relaxed. Previously, the disciples of the Great Wei dynasty had been consistently suppressed by those from the Five Nations, which had long made them feel depressed. Now, they finally vented their frustration and raised their eyebrows in triumph. Next, the assessment continued. At this point, there were only a handful of geniuses left who had not yet been tested. Moreover, each of them possessed extraordinary strength. Apart from the freak Qin Chen, all the heaven-tier martial artists had completed the tests. Only then did the crowd realize that the third round of assessment actually had an order. It seemed to be a slight adjustment based on the results of the previous 2 rounds, selecting the personnel to be assessed. With Xiao Jinghong's performance, the subsequent assessments became even more heated. The scores of the crowd also repeatedly reached new highs. The score of 39 meters was soon broken by another leading figure of the Great Wei dynasty, raising it to 41. The other geniuses of the Great Wei dynasty were also not weak, with scores mostly above 30 meters. I knew it. How can the people of the 5 nations compare to our Great Wei dynasty? Hee. Their so-called strongest are just ordinary here. Don't forget that this is because they once received the inheritance of the ancient southern capital. Otherwise, I'm afraid they wouldn't even be able to leave a mark. Many experts from the ancient southern capital regained their confidence. Each of them was arrogant and wore mocking smiles on their faces. Buzz. The next one to be selected was the young man from the Ghost Immortal sect who ranked 5th in the previous round. As soon as he entered the arena, everyone's eyes narrowed. In the second round of assessment, this person was extraordinarily strong, persevering to the end and ranking 5th, second only to Qin Chen and the 3 great prodigies. And in this round of assessment, he was ranked 10th, which was obviously the conclusion drawn by the will of the ancient southern capital based on the results of the previous 2 rounds. This person was able to rank in the top 10 among all the contestants. Qin Chen's gaze also fixed on him. During the second round, although this person ranked 5th, Qin Chen had a feeling that this person seemed to have deliberately been blasted out, rather than reaching his limit. As for the results of the first round, because Qin Chen himself persevered to the end, he was unable to see them. Therefore, he was also paying close attention at this moment. He saw the young man quietly come to the front of the mark-leaving stone tablet, and without any action, his entire body soared into the sky. Whoosh! His body just went straight up, without the graceful posture of other martial artists, nor the light and etherealness of some top geniuses, just like a white egret, soaring into the sky. 20 meters, 30 meters, 40 meters. The black-robed youth soared all the way up, surpassing the previous highest score of 41 meters in the blink of an eye, causing everyone to change color in horror. At such a high altitude, could he engrave his name? Undeniably, this person was able to be assessed in the last 10, and his strength was naturally extraordinary. But no matter what, the so-called 10th was just a simple ranking, not completely based on strength. Otherwise, the height difference between the people before and after would not be so great. And this person, a genius from the 5 nations, dared to surpass the Great Wei dynasty's previously ranked first genius, which was simply too arrogant. Watch. This person is too aggressive and will definitely suffer. He doesn't even look at his own strength, just thinking about surpassing our Great Wei dynasty's genius. He's in for a hard time. Hee. If you ask me, it would be fun if this person couldn't leave a mark on the mark-leaving stone tablet and was directly eliminated. Watch. It's not impossible. The crowd discussed, with mocking expressions. Previously, many people were too aggressive, rushing to a height they shouldn't have, and as a result, were blasted out. They could have entered the arena competition, but ultimately were eliminated. Now, this person from the 5 nations was so reckless, and the outcome was yet unknown. Amidst the discussions, the young genius from the Ghost Immortal sect was still soaring continuously. He even exceeded 50 meters. Finally, at the 51-meter mark, he stopped. The pressure suppressed at this height was as powerful as a Xuan Iron Mountain peak, enough to suppress ordinary mid-stage Xuan-level martial artists to death. The terrifying pressure made the black-robed youth's face solemn. Go! With a furious roar, his right fist suddenly blasted out. In the void, it seemed as if the sound of ghosts howling rang out, and with the naked eye, a ferocious black skull roared out, biting fiercely on the mark-leaving stone tablet. Boom! The violent roar, like a thunderbolt in the clear sky, suddenly exploded. At the same time, the black-robed youth had already flown out and landed on the ground. Did he leave a mark? At this moment, everyone craned their necks and stared intently at the 51-meter high altitude of the mark-leaving stone tablet. The black skull instantly shattered, and on the towering mark-leaving stone tablet, a fist mark suddenly appeared. What? He actually left a mark. How is that possible? 51 meters, exceeding the previous highest record by 10 meters. Is this guy a monster? The crowd was in an uproar, as if an explosion had occurred. Everyone couldn't believe the scene before them. However, the fist mark on the mark-leaving stone tablet showed everyone that everything that had just happened was real. Buzz, the black-robed youth, who had been teleported to the side by the black figure, had a cold expression and no fluctuations. It seemed that this result was within his expectations. Next, the assessment continued. With the stimulation of this person, the next few geniuses of the Great Wei dynasty all tried their best to leave marks in higher places. The results also repeatedly achieved good results. Several of them surpassed 41 meters, leaving marks at 43, 47, and even 49 meters respectively. However, they still failed to break the black-robed youth's record. There were even some who, in order to surpass this person, focused on going upwards, almost failing to withstand the pressure. Fortunately, at the last moment, they hurriedly stopped and barely left a mark. This person was also the strongest first-tier expert under the three great prodigies of Xuanzu. If he was eliminated because of this, it would really be a heavy loss. After a while, only Qin Chen and his four remained on the field. Buzz. A white light first enveloped Leng Wushuang. I'm the first one. Leng Wushuang was stunned, and his face sank. This clearly meant that in the previous 2 rounds of testing, the will of the ancient southern capital had ranked him last among the 3. It would be strange if he was in a good mood. HMPH. Daring to underestimate me, I will let everyone know who is the real king. With a gloomy face, Leng Wushuang stood in front of the mark-leaving stone tablet, and the terrifying pressure seemed to be insignificant to him, without any impact at all. Finally, it's young Master Leng Shu's turn to be tested. This is really exciting. How many meters do you think young Master Leng Shu can leave a mark at? It's hard to say, but exceeding 51 meters shouldn't be a problem. Is there even a need to say that? With young Master Leng Shu's strength, it would be a surprise if he couldn't surpass those people from the 5 nations. Hee. Just watch. I believe it will definitely amaze us. Even though they weren't participating in the assessment themselves, just watching young Master Leng Shu stand in front of the mark-leaving stone tablet made the many experts of the Dewei dynasty feel their blood boil. Look. Young Master Leng Shu is finally about to make his move. We absolutely can't miss this. The crowd stared intently at the mark-leaving stone tablet on the plaza, their eyes unblinking, as if afraid of missing even a single detail of the process. Bang! Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, young Master Leng Shu's figure suddenly soared into the sky. Beneath his legs, a breeze seemed to be generated, as if an invisible force was lifting him up. What a great movement technique! It's the profound rank high-grade movement technique, soaring cloud heaven. It's said that this movement technique has a total of 7 levels and is the treasure of the Heavenly Balance Academy. Once cultivated to the extreme, one can be as ethereal as the sky and walk on clouds. Judging from young Master Leng Shu's posture, he has probably cultivated it to at least the 5th level, which is extraordinary. The crowd was shocked. A master's move reveals whether he has the goods. Young Master Leng Shu hadn't even truly made a move yet, but merely displaying his movement technique had already caused many experts to marvel. Amidst the gasps of admiration, young Master Leng Shu's figure continued to soar. 20 meters, 30 meters, 40 meters, 50 meters. Upon reaching 50 meters, young Master Leng Shu already felt an incredibly terrifying pressure sweeping over him. This force was extremely frightening, almost bending his shoulders. How could I, Leng Wushuang, stop at a place like this? With an angry roar, a force surged within Leng Wushuang's body once more. Heavenly tome profound skill. Buzz. An invisible force lifted him up again. 55 meters. 58 meters. 60 meters. When young Master Leng Shu broke through 60 meters, the expression on his face had already become extremely ferocious. Finally, he stopped at 62 meters. No, the pressure is too great. If I go any higher, I will most likely be unable to withstand the pressure. If that happens, I won't be able to leave a mark on the mark-leaving stone tablet, which would be troublesome. With an angry shout, a Xuanbing treasure fan appeared in young Master Leng Shu's hand, and he waved it forward with force. Clang! A cold light flashed, and a fan mark quickly appeared on the mark-leaving stone tablet in front. Then, young Master Leng Shu floated down and landed on the ground. 62 meters. This result is simply heaven-defying. As expected of the three great prodigies of Maixuan province, he's more than 10 meters higher than those people from the 5 nations. Ha ha ha, I knew it. How could the trash from these 5 nations compare to the geniuses of my Dewei dynasty? Seeing Leng Wushuang land steadily, the crowd discussed excitedly. This was another new record. Leng Wushuang himself shook his head. His goal for himself was at least close to 70 meters, but unfortunately, he failed to reach it. He glanced at Hua Tiandu and Dai Tianyi behind him, his gaze cold. He wondered what their results would be. As for Qin Chen, he had long been ignored by him. Pa! 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 A burst of applause sounded softly. Dai Tianyi smiled, a smile playing on the corners of his lips. Not bad, not bad. You've achieved a new record, 62 meters. Hee hee. Compared to other martial artists, that's already quite good. Leng Wushuang, you deserve this result. Dai Tianyi seemed to be praising Leng Wushuang, but the meaning contained in his tone made people extremely uncomfortable. What did he mean by, compared to other martial artists, that's already quite good? These words were clearly saying that Leng Wushuang was only worthy of being compared to ordinary martial artists. If you have the ability, show it with your skills. What's the point of just talking? Leng Wushuang snorted coldly and was teleported to the side. Buzz. The next ray of light descended, enveloping Hua Tiandu. Hua Tiandu was prepared and slowly walked to the mark leaving stone tablet. It's the turn of the immortal leaving sect's Hua Tiandu. I wonder how many meters he can leave a mark at. The crowd was curious and waited in silence. Everyone knew that Hua Tiandu's result would definitely not be bad, but compared to Leng Wushuang, it was hard to say who was stronger. Swish. Under the expectant gazes of the crowd, Hua Tiandu soared into the sky like a rock spreading its wings. 30 meters, 40 meters, 50 meters, 60 meters. He's at 60 meters. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. Hua Tiandu's expression was stern, his eyes sharp, and he continued to move upwards. 61, 62, 63. Finally, at 63 meters, he threw a punch, leaving a fist mark, and then floated down. 63 meters, 2 meters higher than Leng Wushuang. As expected of the immortal leaving sect's disciple. Seeing this result, Hua Tiandu breathed a sigh of relief. He seemed calm on the surface, but in reality, the true energy in his body was already somewhat depleted. He knew very well that if he had continued to go up, he would likely have been blasted away by the terrifying pressure, and he wouldn't have even had the ability to leave a mark. Damn it! On the other side of the plaza, Leng Wushuang clenched his fists, his eyes ferocious. 63 meters. Not bad, not bad. It seems like it's my turn next. Dai Tianyi was carefree and arrogant. White light descended, enveloping him. Whoosh. Under the gazes of the crowd, Dai Tianyi strode to the mark leaving stone tablet. Rise! He shouted, and his entire body shot into the sky like a cannonball. 40 meters, 50 meters, 60 meters. In the blink of an eye, he reached a height of 60 meters and was still climbing. The speed was so fast that everyone was shocked. After reaching 60 meters, his speed slowed down. 1 meter at a time. 61, 62, 63. Only after exceeding 60 meters did Dai Tianyi realize just how terrifying the pressure on the mark leaving stone tablet was. Rumble. A pressure like a mountain torrent swept over him. Dai Tianyi felt difficulty breathing, his heart pounding wildly. With each pulse, the blood in his body was as heavy as lead and mercury. Most terrifying was the pressure from his soul, giving him a feeling of almost being unable to breathe, as if he was about to be suppressed into an endless abyss. No. Only 63 meters, how can I give up? Dai Tianyi's expression was ferocious. He had already boasted earlier. If he couldn't even beat Hua Tiandu, wouldn't he be laughed at? At the crucial moment, he forced himself to take a breath and charged up another meter before impatiently pointing his finger. Swoosh. The sharp finger wind pierced through stone and gold, leaving a shallow mark on the mark leaving stone tablet. Then, his entire body was like a heavy hammer, and he flew out in a sorry state. Thud. Dai Tianyi landed heavily on the ground, his legs weak, covered in cold sweat, and almost exhausted. Cough. Cough. Did you see that? This young master said, surpassing you is easy. Standing up, Tianwu pretended to be relaxed and said casually. In reality, his legs were weak and he could barely stand. He thought to himself, that was close. It's a good thing I didn't continue to go up just now, otherwise I probably wouldn't have even been able to leave a mark, which would have been a great embarrassment. Humph. So what if he's a meter taller than us? Besides, you only benefited from being tested later, Tianwu said with a grim expression. Those tested earlier wouldn't go all out to avoid being eliminated, opting for a safer approach. However, those tested later could surpass the previous person by going further after exceeding their mark. If their strengths were similar, the latter person could potentially leave a higher mark without being eliminated. Everyone understood this principle. If Tianwu's strength was truly exceptional, he could have left his mark much further beyond their own. But just now, he eagerly left his mark after only exceeding it by a meter. This showed that his strength wasn't all that impressive. I was just too lazy to make a move. Regardless, I've maintained the top position in these 3 rounds of assessment. I believe everyone has witnessed my reputation as the #1 genius of Xuanzu, Tianwu said smugly. Tianwu scoffed. This ancient southern capital assessment only tests a certain aspect of a martial artist's cultivation. If we're truly judging based on assessment scores, then Qin Chen seems to be above you, right? Does that mean he's the strongest among everyone here? That's ridiculous. Tianwu, now composed, glanced at Qin Chen and said, this person had good luck in the previous 2 rounds, indeed, but this 3rd round tests a martial artist's true strength. With his cultivation, he'll likely struggle just to pass the assessment, let alone achieve a good ranking. How can he compare to this young master? Saying this, Tianwu chuckled, whether you admit it or not, I deserve to be the #1 genius in this round of assessment. Tianwu and Leng Wushuang had gloomy expressions but were speechless. They also admitted that while Qin Chen had a stroke of luck in the first 2 rounds, it was just sheer luck. In this 3rd round, Qin Chen couldn't possibly compare to them, so Tianwu's arrogance naturally flared up. Buzz. At this moment, the last ray of white light enveloped Qin Chen. In fact, Qin Chen was the last one to be assessed. After his assessment, the 3 rounds of assessment in the entire ancient southern capital would be completely over. Hey, it's finally Qin Chen's turn. I wonder what kind of result he'll achieve in this round. It would be hilarious if he failed the assessment. Ha. The champion of the previous 2 rounds failing the assessment in this round, interesting. The crowd erupted in laughter, their mocking gazes even more intense than during Tianwu's test. From the moment Qin Chen dared to defy Tianwu before the ancient southern capital assessment began, he had already become the focus of many geniuses. Not to mention his lucky 1st place finishes in the previous 2 rounds, which astonished everyone. Is it my turn? Ignoring the crowd's discussions, Qin Chen's lips curled into a smile. This monument, Mark Leaving Stone Tablet, is quite interesting. Let me see how difficult it really is. With that thought, Qin Chen's figure flickered, like a phantom, heading towards the Mark Leaving Stone Tablet. He's starting already. Doesn't this guy want to prepare a bit, to feel the pressure of the Mark Leaving Stone Tablet first? With his cultivation, even the pressure at the closest point should make him very uncomfortable, right? The crowd was stunned, bursting into laughter. In their opinion, Qin Chen was too reckless. Tianwu and the others acted casually earlier because their cultivation had already reached an extremely terrifying level. The pressure at the closest point had almost no effect on them. But Qin Chen's cultivation was only at the late stage of the Heaven Realm. Just now, many late-stage Heaven Realm martial artists were shaken and almost unable to stand steady when they entered the range of the Mark Leaving Stone Tablet. For a moment, everyone widened their eyes, wanting to see Qin Chen make a fool of himself. But the result disappointed them. After Qin Chen entered the range of the Mark Leaving Stone Tablet, he didn't react at all. In front of the Mark Leaving Stone Tablet, a pressure enveloped Qin Chen. Interesting. This pressure seems to suppress the martial artist's physical body on the surface, but in reality, it's a suppression of the martial artist's soul. Through the sensation of the soul, it's transmitted to the physical body, giving the examinee a feeling that blurs the line between illusion and reality. Although he had sensed the pressure of the mark-leaving stone tablet from afar before, only when he truly arrived in front of it did Qin Chen clearly understand the specific situation. If it's just pressure on the soul, then this round of assessment is too easy. It shouldn't be that simple. Qin Chen's soul had already reached the point of solidifying and gathering the soul. Even the soul of a Nine Heavens martial emperor might not be as terrifying as his, so naturally, he wasn't afraid of such a small amount of pressure. But Qin Chen believed that this third round of assessment wouldn't be so simple. Whoosh! His figure soared. Without any hesitation, Qin Chen instantly shot into the sky. The true essence within his body surged, forcefully transmitting to his feet, rushing fiercely into the ground along the meridians of his legs. Boom! The powerful impact made many people feel the ground shake. So fast. This speed is too fast, isn't it? What kind of lightness technique is this? It seems like he just jumped up casually, right? Qin Chen was like an arrow released from a bow, heading straight upwards. The powerful pressure enveloped him, but he didn't feel it at all. 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters. In the blink of an eye, he reached a height of 30 meters. What? He wasn't blasted away by the pressure of the mark-leaving stone tablet. What's going on? The pressure at 30 meters is extremely terrifying. Even a profound realm martial artist would find it difficult to withstand. How could he? Among all the late-stage heaven realm martial artists who were assessed earlier, the best result was Yu Changxiu, who only reached a height of 29 meters. This Qin Chen. The crowd was in an uproar, like a powder keg that had been ignited, instantly exploding. The clamor was endless. Qin Chen turned a deaf ear to the crowd's discussions, continuing to ascend. 40 meters, 50 meters, 60 meters. After a few breaths, he reached a height of 60 meters. How is this possible? People were going crazy. A height of 60 meters was a height that only their Xuanzu's three great geniuses could reach, but this Qin Chen. What exactly happened? Could it be that the will of the ancient southern capital went crazy again in this round? Or did Qin Chen get lucky again? Everyone was speechless, unable to understand. Then, they saw Qin Chen's figure continuing to rise after reaching 60 meters. He had already broken through the height of 70 meters. 70 meters, he's broken through 70 meters. He's still rising. My heavens. At this time, no one could speak anymore, everyone was stunned. Putting aside everything else, could a late-stage heaven realm martial artist reach a height of 70 meters with a full-strength jump? Everyone doubted it, not to mention that he was now under the terrifying pressure of the mark-leaving stone tablet. This pressure seems to suppress not only the soul but also the bloodline within me. After reaching 70 meters, Qin Chen clearly felt an incredibly terrifying pressure on his body. Logically, such a pressure shouldn't be able to affect his soul, but at this moment, he felt a slight strain. This indicates that the pressure from the record stone tablet isn't just targeting the soul, it also affects other aspects. At the same time, with a vigorous leap, the true energy within his body was rapidly consumed, and his ascent speed sharply decreased, clearly about to fall. No. I want to go higher and take a look. The true energy within his body suddenly rotated, turning into a vortex that spewed out from the soles of Qin Chen's feet once more. Soaring sky ladder cloud steps. This was a lightness skill that Qin Chen cultivated in his previous life, allowing him to ascend again after exhausting his strength. Whoosh! Qin Chen, who had appeared to be on the verge of falling, suddenly generated a force beneath his feet and charged upwards again. This ghost-like action completely stunned all the martial artists present. Cheating. He must be cheating. Just now, Qin Chen's speed decreased sharply, clearly unable to hold on. How did he suddenly rush upwards again? To be able to fly in the air, one must be a 7th-level martial king. That Qin Chen is only a heaven-level martial artist, how can he possibly reach such a height? Could it be that the will of the ancient southern capital is giving this kid preferential treatment again? With twitching mouths, all the martial artists on the field were dumbfounded. In their opinion, there was almost no other possibility besides the will of the ancient southern capital giving him preferential treatment. The ancient southern capitals will has given this kid preferential treatment in all 3 assessments. It's simply a bug. How are others supposed to compete? Meanwhile, facing everyone's speechlessness, Qin Chen turned a deaf ear. Under the dazed gazes of everyone, he broke through the height of 90 meters. Rumble. An invisible force surged into Qin Chen's mind. In an instant, Qin Chen felt as if he were in a cosmic starry sky. The power from the primordial and ancient times made him involuntarily widen his eyes. In the distant, pitch-black starry sky, a dark shadow slowly floated out, erupting with a heaven-piercing pressure that spanned the ages. The dark shadow gradually became clear, and it was actually the record stone tablet of this assessment, emitting a suffocating aura. Could it be that this record stone tablet came from the ancient starry sky? Qin Chen was shocked, deeply shaken by this scene. What is there in the cosmic starry sky? Even a martial emperor expert wouldn't dare to say they could roam freely, yet this black stone tablet actually came from such a place. Even more shocking was that upon closer inspection, there were actually several dark figures standing on the black record stone tablet. These figures were integrated with the black stone tablet, each with a different aura, like war gods, proudly standing on the stone tablet, erupting with an unprecedented terrifying aura. It was as if these figures were not people at all, but several primordial gods, reigning over the continent. Qin Chen tried his best to widen his eyes, wanting to see the other party's face clearly, but all he saw was a void of darkness. Suddenly, one of the figures seemed to sense Qin Chen's gaze and looked over intently. Boom! Qin Chen only felt a roar in his brain, the entire world collapsing, and all things in the world turning into nothingness under this gaze, returning to the void. What terrifying eyes! Just who are these people? Could they be the founders of the ancient southern capital in the ancient era? Qin Chen was shocked, his heart receiving an unparalleled impact. In his previous life, he was also a top figure in the martial domain, and he had seen countless martial emperors, but he had never felt that a person's eyes could be so terrifying. It was as if this world would collapse under the other party's gaze. Rumble. Violent pressure swept everywhere, and boundless darkness swallowed everything. Just as Qin Chen felt that he was about to sink, suddenly, a light seemed to light up in his mind, piercing through the endless cosmic darkness and illuminating everything. Not good. I should still be undergoing the ancient southern capital assessment test. Qin Chen suddenly woke up. Immediately, he saw that his entire body was falling downwards, about to fall out of the stone tablet's range. At the critical moment, the 9 stars divine emperor art true energy within Qin Chen's body suddenly circulated, and the mysterious rusty sword in his hand suddenly appeared, unleashing a sword strike. Whoosh! The entire record stone tablet shook. Immediately afterward, a clear sword mark appeared on the stone tablet. Although the sword mark was not large, it proudly stood above 90 meters in the sky, shocking everyone. The next moment, Qin Chen fell heavily to the ground, and his internal organs were almost shattered. That was close. If I had woken up a little later, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to leave a mark on this record stone tablet. Qin Chen broke out in a cold sweat and then looked up. He saw a sword mark floating above 90 meters in the sky. Phew! I should have exceeded 100 meters just now, but after passing 100 meters, the pressure increased greatly, causing me to instantly fall into a state of trance, constantly falling downwards until I fell to over 90 meters before instantly waking up and leaving a mark. However, the pressure after 100 meters on this record stone tablet is so terrifying that even my level of soul power cannot overcome it. I really don't know what kind of genius engraved the marks at over 150 meters on this record stone tablet. Qin Chen was shocked, but soon, he realized. It's still because my cultivation is too low. Qin Chen prided himself on his soul strength being no weaker than anyone else, even the geniuses and powerhouses of the ancient era. However, his cultivation was too low, only at the late heaven level, so being able to reach a height of over 90 meters was already quite extraordinary. If his cultivation could break through to the profound level, perhaps he could rush above 100 meters. What a pity, what a pity. However, Qin Chen's disappointment made everyone else present stare with wide eyes, their mouths agape, as if they could fit an egg inside. 98 meters. An unprecedented 98 meters. Dai Tianyi and the others were completely dumbfounded, one by one in a daze. They had tried the best, but they could only leave marks at over 60 meters. Yet Qin Chen, a heaven-level martial artist, actually had a better score than them, and by over 30 meters. It was simply like a miracle. How could everyone believe that this was the score Qin Chen had obtained himself, and not the will of the ancient southern capital helping him cheat? Young Master Chen, even Wang Qiming and Xiao Zhan widened their eyes, looking like they were about to have a heart attack. At this time, the surprised crowd did not see that even the black figure hanging above everyone's heads, in its always empty eyes, a cold light suddenly flashed. But soon, it disappeared without a trace, as if nothing had happened. On the ancient southern capital plaza, before he could even rest, Qin Chen was enveloped by a mysterious force, teleporting him together with the others. Thus, the 3 rounds of assessment in the ancient southern capital came to an end. Looking around, the original team of 600 examinees had been drastically reduced, with only less than 100 people passing all 3 rounds. And Qin Chen became the most dazzling one in these 3 rounds of assessment. First place in the 3 rounds of assessment, overpowering the 3 great geniuses of the Great Wei dynasty. Although this result seemed strange to everyone, it must be said that after this assessment, Qin Chen was no longer unknown, and had almost become the most special one among everyone present. Haha, I finally passed the 3 rounds of assessment and have the opportunity to participate in the arena competition and receive the inheritance. One martial artist was extremely excited. HMPH, don't be happy too soon. It is said that if you want to receive the inheritance, you must achieve excellent results in the upcoming arena competition. It is estimated that you must at least enter the top 10 to have this possibility. Do you think you can do it? Another martial artist sneered, trying to dampen his spirits. Regardless, just being able to enter the arena competition and compete with the many geniuses present is already a success. That's true. All the martial artists who passed the assessment were excited. Those who failed to pass had gloomy expressions and looked very unhappy. In particular, some Xuan-level geniuses from the Great Wei dynasty, seeing that there were still some Earth-level martial artists who had not been eliminated, and even many people from the 5 nations, felt even more displeased. Everyone, congratulations on passing the assessment of the ancient southern capital and entering the final arena competition. At this moment, the black figure above everyone's heads suddenly descended, its rumbling voice echoing between heaven and earth. Everyone calmed down and looked up at the sky, wanting to see what the next round would be like. The black figure's voice continued to ring out. In view of your excellent performance, next, I will reward all of you who have passed the assessment. What? There's a reward? What reward? The crowd was shaken, and everyone showed surprise. Even the people from the 5 nations were stunned and looked puzzled. The ancient southern capital ruins had appeared in the northwest 5 nations for a full 100 years, and the arena competition had been held for many sessions. But no one had ever heard of receiving a reward for passing the initial preliminary assessment. It seems that this year's arena competition is indeed different. A strong man from the 5 nations lowered his head and pondered, his eyes sharp. This year's ancient southern capital competition had gathered geniuses and produced many strong individuals. The biggest surprise came from the geniuses of the Great Wei dynasty. Their overall strength was at least several times stronger than the previous session. If he wasn't mistaken, this so-called surprise should have come from the geniuses of the Great Wei dynasty. At this time, on the square, all the geniuses who passed the assessment were looking forward, staring at the black figure above their heads. This was the controller of the ancient ruins. From the previous 3 rounds of assessment, everyone had already understood the horror of this ancient southern capital ruins. Since it was a reward given by the other party, then it must be extraordinary. Everyone was full of anticipation. Only to see that above the sky, colorful rays of light suddenly appeared. These colorful rays of light were gorgeous and dazzling, like ribbons of aurora, falling down and sprinkling on everyone. The true energy in my body. This feeling. As soon as the rays of light fell on everyone, they felt that the true energy in their bodies seemed to be stimulated, becoming extremely active, as if they wanted to break through the original shackles. Moreover, These rays of light contained amazing heaven and earth true energy, as if it could be absorbed endlessly. No matter how much one absorbed, it would always be full and would never dry up. This feeling was like taking a breakthrough pill, giving people the urge to break through on the spot. At the same time, the physical body also seemed to be tempered, and everyone's physical body became extremely transparent, as if there wasn't a trace of impurities. This is the unique heavenly Tao divine light of my ancient southern capital, which can temper the physical body, enhance perception, and activate true energy. I will give a certain amount of rewards based on your previous performance. You can use this opportunity to deduce cultivation techniques, temper the physical body, break through cultivation, or comprehend martial arts, etc., but how far you can improve depends on your own comprehension. The black figure waved his right hand, and a large amount of colorful rays of light sprinkled down, falling on everyone. It could be seen that the amount of these colorful rays of light varied. Some had only a little bit of silk-like strands, while others were like waterfalls, hanging across the sky, gorgeous and colorful. Among them, the most abundant were naturally Qin Chen and the three great geniuses including Dai Tianyi. Their results were the best, so the rewards they received were naturally the most. Especially Qin Chen, the colorful rays of light above his head were like the Milky Way falling down, hanging upside down in the sky, giving people a strong visual shock. This kid is too lucky, isn't he? So much colorful light, isn't it more than 10 times ours? It's too abnormal. Some of the lower-ranked martial artists, looking at the few strands of heavenly Tao divine light above their heads, which could almost be counted, and then looking at the waterfall above Qin Chen's head, were all stunned and depressed to the point of vomiting blood. However, they only complained in their hearts, but did not dare to waste it. One by one, they quickly sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate. Boom! In just an instant, a terrifying aura rose into the sky above the square. A Xuan-level early-stage peak martial artist from the Great Wei dynasty circulated the true energy in his body, like a dragon and a tiger, roaring angrily. The surging aura set him off like a god of war. I broke through to the Xuan-level mid-stage. Opening his eyes, the genius looked excited, staring blankly at his hands, unable to believe his eyes. Not only him, in just a short moment, booming sounds continued throughout the square. A large number of martial artists were surrounded by terrifying true energy, and they all broke through. Too terrifying. What exactly is this heavenly Tao divine light? The martial arts techniques that I could never comprehend before, just now, as if blessed by the gods, became incredibly clear. Me too, and I used to fight too much, and I had a lot of hidden injuries, but they were healed under the illumination of this heavenly Tao divine light. It's a pity that there is too little heavenly Tao divine light. I just had a little feeling, and it was absorbed. The crowd exploded and went crazy. Everyone was so excited that they couldn't control themselves. Those martial artists outside the ancient southern capital who didn't get the reward didn't feel anything at first, but when they saw that their former friends had broken through in a short period of time and their cultivation had instantly surpassed their own, they were so depressed that they almost vomited blood, wishing they could rush in on the spot. Among them, there were a few martial artists who could have left a mark, but were eliminated due to mistakes or carelessness, and they spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot and fainted. For a time, on the entire square, every martial artist who passed the assessment was cultivating frantically, not daring to waste a bit. Rumble, rumble. Successive booming sounds continued, as one genius after another broke through. Among them, the originally heaven-level martial artists almost all broke through to the profound level in a very short period, their speed astonishing. Is this the legendary ancient southern capital ruins? Too terrifying. In such a short time, it can allow so many people to break through. What exactly is this so-called heavenly Tao divine light? This kind of effect, I'm afraid even a fourth-grade pill might not be comparable, right? The crowd was in an uproar, shocked by it. Martial artists' cultivation breakthroughs are inherently an extremely long process, requiring consideration of many factors. In many cases, even with breakthrough-type pills, a large amount of preparation must be done in advance to potentially break through. However, Under the illumination of this heavenly Tao divine light, whether it was a late-stage heaven level or an early or mid-stage profound level martial artist, they involuntarily broke through. This kind of effect was simply beyond their imagination. It was definitely not something ordinary human power could achieve. Amidst the crowd's shock, Qin Chen in the square was also shaken. What exactly is this heavenly Tao divine light? Under this heavenly Tao divine light, Qin Chen clearly felt that his body was incomparably transparent. Every cell, every tissue, was presented in his mind. At the same time, his mental power was also highly concentrated, his mind was clear, and some previously doubtful and vague areas became clear, as if he had been enlightened. As for the true energy in his body, it was even more eager to move, wanting to advance to a higher realm. In fact, after the previous 3 rounds of assessment, the 9-star God Emperor Art true energy in Qin Chen's body had already reached a late-stage peak, only 1 step away from the profound level. It could be said that even without the heavenly Tao divine light, Qin Chen could break through the heaven level and enter the profound realm in a very short time. At this moment, under the illumination of the heavenly Tao divine light, the 9-star God Emperor Art in Qin Chen's body was almost uncontrollable, involuntarily wanting to break through. This heavenly Tao divine light is too terrifying, but the top priority is not to rush to break through. Because of the Great Wei dynasty's aggressive approach and the cloaked man's secret spying, Qin Chen had originally wanted to improve his strength and break through. However, after seeing the terrifying effect of the heavenly Tao divine light, he was no longer in a hurry. The profound realm can be broken through at any time. What I need to do most now is to break through the undying holy body to the 3rd level. The cultivation difficulty of the undying holy body is extremely high. Each breakthrough requires a large amount of materials and treasures, and it needs to go through great pain. Previously, after the 2nd round of the formation pressure assessment, Qin Chen had already cultivated the undying holy body to the peak of the 2nd level, but even so, it would be almost impossible to break through to the 3rd level without several months and obtaining body refining treasures. Now, with such a good opportunity, how could he waste it? With a thought, a large amount of heavenly Tao divine light immediately merged into his body, and began to temper Qin Chen's body. Strands of impurities were quickly eliminated. Qin Chen could see that his physical body was almost becoming transparent at a speed visible to the naked eye. Every cell, every meridian, was baptized and became crystal clear. Buzz. After consuming a full 1/5 of the heavenly Tao divine light, a burst of crackling sounds suddenly came from Qin Chen's body, as if countless shackles were broken in an instant. A crystal clear light bloomed from Qin Chen's body, and then quickly converged, returning to ordinary. My undying holy body has finally broken through to the 3rd level. With a flash in his eyes, feeling the surging power in his body, Qin Chen couldn't help but want to shout loudly. Before, when his undying holy body was only at the 2nd level, it was enough to fight against a 4th level profound late-stage martial artist. Now, his undying holy body has broken through to the 3rd level. How many times has it improved in terms of defense? It was equal to a qualitative leap. It could be said. Now, just standing there, a profound late-stage peak martial artist would not be able to break through his defense. Even a 5th-level martial lord might not be able to cause him much damage. With this defense, although my combat power has not improved much, at least facing a 5th-level martial lord, even if I can't kill the opponent, it is enough to have a fight. After the undying holy body broke through, Qin Chen's confidence greatly increased. Now I can break through. Boom. Almost without consuming any heavenly Tao divine light, the true energy in Qin Chen's body had already spontaneously begun to transform into profound level true force, breaking through to the profound realm. Actually, after taking the heart lotus pill, Qin Chen's cultivation had broken through to the late-stage peak of the heaven level in one fell swoop. Plus his experience from his previous life, it was not difficult for him to break through to the profound level. He could have done it in Martial City. However, the profound level is a threshold for martial artists from the beginner level to enter the intermediate level, and a good foundation must be laid. Qin Chen was unwilling to break through before, just because he didn't want to be too hasty and force growth. Breaking through rashly without solidifying his foundation would cause huge hidden dangers to his future cultivation. After coming out of Martial City, Qin Chen has experienced a lot, especially the 3 major preliminary assessments of this ancient southern capital. Each round of assessment is a kind of baptism for his mind and body. It can be said that the 3 rounds of assessment have already solidified Qin Chen's realm incomparably firmly. Not to mention anything else, just the physical defense has already broken through to the level of a 5th level martial lord, but his cultivation is still at the late stage peak of the heaven level. This itself is a problem. Therefore, after the undying holy body broke through to the 3rd level, without deliberately urging it, the true energy in Qin Chen's body had already naturally transformed towards true force. For other martial artists, it would probably take a lot of effort to break through true energy into true force. After all, for them, true force is a new level of power. But for Qin Chen, who was a martial emperor in his previous life, true force was too familiar. After strands of true energy were transformed into true force, they were quickly mobilized by Qin Chen, causing more true energy to transform into true force. In just a moment, there was no longer a trace of true energy in Qin Chen's body. All the true energy was transformed into that rich true force. Rumble. Under the nourishment of the heavenly Tao divine light, the true force in Qin Chen's body rapidly increased. No, this heavenly Tao divine light is too precious. If it is used to transform true force, it is simply not worth it. With a thought, a large number of low-grade true stones quickly appeared in Qin Chen's hand. As soon as these true stones appeared, they were absorbed and turned into dust, dissipating in the wind. In this way, one true stone after another was absorbed. After an incense stick of time, the low-grade true stones in Qin Chen's storage ring were almost completely consumed, and his realm was finally consolidated at the peak of the early stage of the profound level. The 9-star God Emperor art the first cultivate requires too much heaven and earth true energy to absorb. Qin Chen smiled wryly. So many low-grade true stones, a full hundreds of them, were all his previous savings. If it were an ordinary early-stage profound-level martial artist, I'm afraid they would have absorbed dozens of them and couldn't absorb any more. But he, a full hundreds of them, had just finished absorbing them. At this time, about 3/5 of the heavenly Tao divine light above Qin Chen's head remained. The upcoming heavenly Tao divine light should not be wasted on improving my cultivation realm. For Qin Chen, cultivation was the most basic thing, and also the thing he cared about the least. If he wanted to improve, he could completely break through by finding high-level materials or refining high-level pills. However, some things could not be solved by refining pills. For example, spiritual power. Improving spiritual power was more complicated and difficult than improving cultivation. Moreover, once his spiritual power became stronger, Qin Chen would also be able to refine more powerful pills. It could be said to be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. First, enhance my spiritual power. With a thought, Qin Chen immediately guided the heavenly Tao divine light into his spiritual sea. Rumble. The calm spiritual sea instantly surged, rapidly improving at a speed visible to the naked eye. Originally, Qin Chen's spiritual power had entered the mid-stage of the 4th rank after his cultivation broke through to the profound level. But in a short period of time, it rapidly broke through again. Mid-stage peak of the 4th rank. Late stage of the 4th rank. Peak of the late stage of the 4th rank. Until early stage of the 5th rank. Boom. Qin Chen's entire spiritual sea instantly surged, like a tsunami. That powerful, all-sweeping feeling made Qin Chen feel like everything was under his control. After my spiritual power breaks through to the 5th rank, this 5th rank Blue Lotus demonic flame will also be able to be activated by me. In this way, my strength will be greatly improved. Qin Chen was extremely excited. This time, the harvest was really too great, enough to save him several years of hard work. At this time, only 1/5 of the heavenly Tao divine light above Qin Chen's head remained. Use it to enhance my bloodline. During this period, Qin Chen had also been improving his bloodline, but he had not been able to find a suitable blood crystal. Therefore, his thunder bloodline had only been raised from the 1st rank to the 2nd rank. The progress could be said to be the slowest in all aspects. Qin Chen was also very troubled by this. Fortunately, his thunder bloodline could grow on its own. With the improvement of his cultivation, it was also slowly improving, but this speed was very slow. Buzz. The last remaining heavenly Tao divine light was poured into his bloodline by Qin Chen in one go. Crackling. The location of the thunder bloodline suddenly burst out with endless thunder light. Streaks of lightning danced within his bloodline, like silver snakes dancing and thunder dragons roaring. Boom. Finally, the power of the bloodline suddenly shook. Qin Chen's thunder bloodline successfully entered the third rank from the second rank, and finally calmed down. From then on, all the heavenly Tao divine light had been absorbed by Qin Chen. Consolidate my cultivation. After completing all of this, Qin Chen did not stand up, but instead fully operated the 9-star divine emperor art. A large amount of 4th rank true essence circulated throughout his body. Every time the cycle ended, the true essence in his body would solidify a bit. At the same time, the undying holy body was also operating, repairing the flaws and omissions in his body bit by bit. Next was the myriad gods art. Making the 5th rank spiritual power, which had broken through greatly in a short period of time, become solid, and no longer have an unstable foundation. While Qin Chen was consolidating his cultivation. On the field, the other contestants had all stopped cultivating. Their amount of heavenly Tao divine light was less, so naturally they completed their cultivation faster. It's unbelievable. My cultivation has actually broken through from the late stage peak of the heaven level to the mid stage of the profound level in one fell swoop. Me too. Not only is it the profound level, but it has almost reached the peak of the mid stage of the profound level. It's unbelievable. Even a 5th grade pill may not have such a terrifying effect, right? The crowd discussed, and the sound of roaring was like an explosion. Everyone was stunned. At this time, there was no longer a heaven-level martial artist on the field. All the heaven-level martial artists had used this to break through to the profound level. Some heaven-level martial artists with higher talents and excellent results on the Trace Stellae even broke through to the mid-stage of the profound level in one fell swoop with the help of a large amount of heavenly Tao divine light. For example, Yu Changxiu broke through to the peak of the mid-stage of the profound level, while Wang Qiming, Zhao Lingshan, Zixun, and Xiao Jing broke through to the mid-stage of the profound level. As for the 4th Prince Zhao Wei, he only broke through to the peak of the early stage of the profound level. However, for him personally, it was already an extremely amazing improvement. After this cultivation, he could even save nearly 10 years of hard work. As for some martial artists who were already at the profound level, the progress was not so exaggerated. But those who were originally at the early stage of the profound level had basically broken through to the mid-stage of the profound level, and those who were originally at the mid-stage of the profound level had broken through to the peak of the mid-stage of the profound level. Some people even broke through to the late stage of the profound level in one fell swoop. Even more amazing were the 3 great geniuses, Dai Tianyi and others. Buzz. When they opened their eyes, a terrifying aura suddenly spread out, even causing many people present to dare not look directly at him, and they lowered their heads and had difficulty breathing. What a terrifying aura! What realm have the young master Dai Xin and the others broken through to? The young master Dai Xin and the others were already late-stage profound level experts with terrifying strength. The heavenly Tao divine light they absorbed far exceeded the rest of us. Under the double superposition, what level will they reach? Could it be that they have broken through to the 5th rank martial sect? The crowd shook and discussed secretly. Outside the ancient southern capital, the top experts of the various forces of the Great Wei dynasty also gasped. However, their vision was more vicious, and they could naturally see that the young master Dai Xin and the others had not entered the sect level. But even so, the benefits the 3 had obtained were extremely amazing. It could be seen that the 3 of them exuded a terrifying aura between their gestures. Although they had not broken through, they were not far from the sect level. Originally, according to the young master's cultivation progress, he was expected to enter the martial sect realm within 3 years. Now it seems that it is very likely that he will break through to the martial sect within 1 year. The Dai Xin city expert who led Dai Tianyi to the ancient southern capital's eyes flickered, and his heart shook secretly. Aside, the depths of the eyes of the experts from Tianheng Academy and Liuxian sect also revealed ecstasy. 5th rank martial sect. If these 3 great geniuses can break through to the martial sect within 1 year, not to mention being proud in Xuanzhu, they can even go out of Xuanzhu and compete with the real royal geniuses of the Great Wei dynasty. This is of great significance to Xuanzhu. It seems that this trip to the 5 nations was the right one. Regardless of whether the young master can obtain the inheritance of the ancient southern capital, the benefits he has just obtained are enough to make him reborn and soar into the sky. The old man of Daixin City was excited and his face was flushed. Right. What about the Qin Chen? At this time, after being shocked, all the geniuses and experts present suddenly reacted. They looked towards Qin Chen. You must know that the one who obtained first place in this ancient southern capital preliminary assessment was not the young master Daixin and the others, but the kid Qin Chen from the 5 nations who had luck like dog shit. When the heavenly Tao divine light descended earlier, the amount of heavenly Tao divine light above Qin Chen's head was also the most, even at least twice as much as the young master Daixin, who was ranked second. Many of them had only absorbed 1/10 or even 1/20 of Qin Chen's heavenly Tao divine light, and they had broken through to the peak of the early stage of the profound level, or even the mid stage. And that Qin Chen has absorbed so much heavenly Tao divine light, wouldn't he break through to the peak of the late stage of the profound level in one fell swoop? Lost in their imaginations, everyone hurriedly turned their heads to look. With this one look, everyone was dumbfounded, their eyes bulging round, as if they had seen a ghost. Profound stage initial phase. Everyone staggered, feeling so frustrated they were about to vomit blood, practically going insane. Under the gaze of the crowd, Qin Chen was still sitting cross-legged, eyes closed in cultivation. The heavenly Tao divine light above his head had already been completely absorbed, and the aura on his body had completely stabilized. He had only advanced to the initial phase of the profound stage. Oh. No. It should be said, the peak of the initial phase of the profound stage. Everyone was practically going crazy. They had clearly seen when the heavenly Tao divine light descended earlier that the heavenly Tao divine light above Qin Chen's head was at least 10 or 20 times more than theirs. However, like Yu Changxiu, who absorbed 1/10 of Qin Chen's heavenly Tao divine light and broke through from the late phase of the heaven stage to the peak of the middle phase of the profound stage, others, such as Zhao Lingshan, absorbed even less than 1/10 of Qin Chen's heavenly Tao divine light. But they also broke through from the late phase of the heaven stage to the middle phase of the profound stage. But what about Qin Chen? He absorbed almost the equivalent of dozens of people's worth of heavenly Tao divine light, yet only broke through from the peak of the late phase of the heaven stage to the peak of the initial phase of the profound stage. Just how rotten was his talent? What frustrated everyone was that Qin Chen had absorbed the most heavenly Tao divine light of all. It was simply unjust. Heavens! Why didn't the heavens send down a divine thunderbolt to strike this wicked fellow to death? For a time, everyone was vomiting blood. They were so frustrated they were about to die on the spot. How wonderful would it have been if they had absorbed so much heavenly Tao divine light? Perhaps they could have even reached the sect stage. Many people were speechless. Huff. Just then, Qin Chen finally finished cultivating, exhaling a long breath and opening his eyes. Then, he saw everyone looking at him as if they had seen a ghost, and couldn't help but feel astonished. Why are you all looking at me? Is there something on my face? Something on your sister? Seeing Qin Chen acting as if nothing had happened, everyone went even more crazy. Didn't this kid know how much he had wasted just now? Boy, you better pray you don't meet me in the arena competition, otherwise, I'm afraid I won't be able to resist killing you. A genius roared, veins bulging all over his body. Frowning, Qin Chen said speechlessly, "Are you crazy? You're the one who's crazy." That genius was trembling with anger. If it weren't for the black figure watching overhead, he probably would have attacked already. Too lazy to pay attention to this madman, Qin Chen went to Wang Qiming and the others, and saw that Wang Qiming and the others were also looking at him with strange expressions. What's wrong? Qin Chen was depressed. It was one thing for others to look at him like that, but you guys too. Young Master Chen, how did you only break through to the peak of the initial phase of the profound stage? Wang Qiming couldn't help but ask in confusion. Zhao Lingshan and Zizun also looked over. In their opinion, Qin Chen's talent shouldn't be that poor. How could he only break through so little after absorbing so much heavenly Tao divine light? So that's what it was. Looking at Wang Qiming and the others, who had almost all broken through to the middle phase of the profound stage, Qin Chen said speechlessly, "This heavenly Tao divine light is very precious. If it were all used to break through in cultivation, it would be too wasteful. Therefore, I used it to improve in other aspects." Improve in other aspects. Everyone was stunned. Wang Qiming nodded and said, "Young Master Chen, I can understand what you're saying. After I broke through to the middle phase of the profound stage, I didn't continue to break through. Instead, I used the remaining heavenly Tao divine light to comprehend my sword intent. However, even if you used it in other aspects, you shouldn't have only broken through to the peak of the initial phase of the profound stage, right? I remember your heavenly Tao divine light was at least 10 times more than mine." Wang Qiming and the others had not used all of their heavenly Tao divine light to break through in cultivation. In fact, they had also greatly improved in aspects such as sword intent. However, they didn't consume much heavenly Tao divine light to improve in these aspects. This, just as Qin Chen was about to explain, suddenly, an invisible force descended. "Everyone, now that you have all finished absorbing your rewards, the next step will be the most crucial arena competition of my ancient southern capital." The rumbling sound echoed through the heavens and earth. Immediately, everyone saw 6 magnificent arenas rising rumblingly in the center of the ancient southern capital, appearing before everyone. Each arena exuded an ancient aura, constructed from ancient rocks. The surfaces of the arenas were covered with many traces of swords and sabers, and even some dark stains. The arena competition will adopt an elimination system. After 3 rounds of assessment, there are a total of 96 contestants who have passed the preliminary selection. These 96 people will compete in pairs, and the losers will be directly eliminated, while the winners will enter the next round. After 1 round, 48 people will remain, and they will undergo a second round of elimination, leaving 24 people, who will then undergo a third round of elimination, leaving 12 people. These 12 people will then determine the true rankings and will have the opportunity to obtain the inheritance of my ancient southern capital. As the voice fell, everyone's eyes flashed. 12 people. Everyone cautiously looked around. 96 spots. To determine the top 12, it had to be said, was an incredibly huge pressure. However, for everyone, this was another opportunity. I must break into these 12 people. Everyone's heart was incomparably firm. Especially after receiving the heavenly Tao divine light, they were even more eager to receive the inheritance. Just winning the preliminary selection could cause them to undergo such a transformation, so how powerful would this final inheritance be? For a time, endless fighting spirit erupted from every genius, as if the essence and energy were like wolf smoke, soaring straight into the sky. How will the rule of pairing be determined? Suddenly, a martial artist asked in a deep voice. This was also what everyone wanted to know. What they feared most was definitely encountering a powerhouse like Dai Tianyi, as that one match would cost them their qualification. But similarly, Dai Tianyi and the others also didn't want to encounter Hua Tiandu and the others in the first instance. After all, although they had enough confidence in themselves, if 2 strong opponents fought, there would inevitably be injuries. If they were eliminated because of this, it would also be unfair to Dai Tianyi and the others. Rest assured, I will analyze each person's contestants based on the final results of the previous preliminary round, and then allocate reasonable opponents. There will be no situation where strong opponents face each other and are ultimately eliminated. The black figure said indifferently. Now, the assessment begins. Buzz, 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 buzz. In an instant, 12 rays of light descended simultaneously, enveloping 12 people on the field. Each person was assigned an opponent and simultaneously teleported to one of the 6 arenas. I was actually selected first. Qin Chen was stunned. Before his eyes could focus, he had already appeared on one of the arenas. And opposite him stood a youth holding a silver fan, also looking at him in astonishment, with a hint of surprise in his eyes. It was Li Kunyun, a disciple of the Lixian sect who had clashed with him before.